Hey, were you one of those kids who was too cool to own a normal animal like a dog or a cat and showed up to bring your pet to school day with a giant iguana? Did the Aragon book series play such a pivotal role in your upbringing that it birthed the lifelong dream of becoming a dragon rider and a ceaseless loathing for the abomination that is the movie adaptation? Well, congratulations! You might be a Drake Warden. But what is a Drake Warden? Well, saddle up and settle down because
there be dragons here.
Dragons are everywhere nowadays. You got dragon shows, dragon books, dragon shows, dragon games, dragon shows, dragon food, and of course dragon shows. Hell, you can't even compliment your partner's butt without mentioning that wagon they're dragging. So to capitalize on this, the Beach Witches, or whatever they're called, put out a book all about dragons. And it's pretty good. But some lunatic also took one look at a few hundred pounds of teeth and scales and said, yeah, I'm gonna pet that. And that's how we got ourselves a drake. But what is a drake? Well, unlike this one or this one, your drake is a smallish green dragon-like creature that's still allowed within 100 yards of a school. But what does it look like? Sometimes a drake is dragon-like, sometimes more like a dog, and other times just a straight-up dinosaur. Which is nice in this case, as you can flavor your drake however you want, from the classic toothless to a giant chicken. And all we have to do to get this superb mount is take a bunch of levels in Ranger. Oh no. But first, are you tired of your minis coming out jagged and hard to paint? Wouldn't you love to learn of a company that crafts their minis with the same love and care that you craft your adventures? Well, look no further than the Master of Miniatures. When searching for the perfect mini for your campaign, it's easy to get lost in the sea of tiny plastic that permeates the D&D landscape. But I'm here to tell you that there's at least one micro merchant who knows how to treat us right. Not only are you supporting a small business born from the tabletop fandom, but you're also getting the best quality for your well-earned dollar. The Master's Minis come fully assembled, based and cleaned, and ready to play straight out the box. But for those who enjoy funny glasses and finger cramps, they also come pre-primed and edge highlighted for the easiest painting experience. Anyway, if you need a little more tiny tomfoolery in your life, head on over to this link at masterofminiatures.com and use the promo code YouMightBeAD&D at checkout for 20% off. That also stacks with their multi-buy discount, meaning on 7 items or more, you can get up to 40% off. And you don't have to be a rogue to know that that is a steal. So hit up that link in the description and tell them your buddy Yimba sent you. And a big thanks to the Master of Miniatures for sponsoring the show. Now, back to the video. Okay, so here's the tough part. Rangers still have a horrible reputation for being super underwhelming compared to other classes. You can compare them most to Paladins being a kind of mix of Cleric and Fighter, with Rangers being kind of a mix of Druid and Fighter. However, in most circumstances, it was actually just better to multi-class Druid and Fighter. So to compensate, the Sand Sorcerers, what is their name, gave the newest Ranger subclasses some pretty slick abilities. However, I don't think that many people have been paying attention because even the Gloomstalker, who I adore, has had trouble shaking off that Ranger stink. But what about the Drake Ward? Well, there's a lot to talk about, so let's speed past the boring part and get to the good stuff. At level 1 you get Favored Foe and Deft Explorer. Take these optional abilities because the originals are bad, with Favored Foe being a version of Hunter's Mark that scales with your class level, and Deft Explorer giving you the canniness of a rogue for expertise in one's skill, because who knew Ranger's real class feature was plagiarism. You also get 2 additional languages because trees. Second level gets us a fighting style, and while I highly recommend archery, I can see an argument for dueling or 2-weapon fighting, especially at early levels, but not thrown weapon fighting. Unfortunately, it still kinda sucks. Somebody make me a boomerang subclass, please. I've always wanted to play as Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. But we also get spellcasting, and while you're not the best combat spellcaster, you can cast buffs for you and your allies, or summon creatures for additional support, which is kinda your thing. And at 3rd level, we did it. We made it. We get Primal Awareness for 1 extra spell per spell level. Wait, no, that's still bad. What happens at level 3? Oh yeah, we get a whole ass Pokemon to play with, and we didn't even have to restrain a wild living creature against its will to win what essentially boils down to regulated dogfighting. No, instead, somewhere in your adventures, you helped a mysterious creature or licked a shiny rock only to find out it bore a draconic essence. In doing so, you discover you've been granted certain gifts through this new connection. This gives you access to the draconic language so you can finally read that HTTYD fanfiction. I wouldn't, it's weird. But you also get the thaumaturgy cantrip to roar in a scary voice or do a dragon's favorite pastime, slamming open all the windows. But best of all, we also get our very own Drake. Stop that. And I mean, come on, who doesn't want a tiny dragon they can just have around? Your new little buddy has good stats and an intelligence of 8, meaning they can speak to you in Draconic and are still smarter than your average Twitch streamer.
Is that King Arthur?
And they can also fight by your side with a nasty 1d6 bite attack. But the best thing about your new little buddy is that they scale with your proficiency bonus and grow bigger and badder over time. I wasn't kidding when I said this really is like having your own Pokemon. You can even summon your Drake as an action once per long rest, or more if you spend a first level spell slot. Eat your heart out, Beastmaster. Have fun over there with your hawk or whatever. I just caught a Dratini and I didn't even have to fish in the Safari Zone for a week. Also, each time you summon your little buddy, you can choose a damage type between Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Poison, and your Drake becomes completely immune to that damage until you summon them again. So while you might melt under a Black Dragon's Acid Breath, he won't. So that's a huge level for us. And so far I'm pretty much sold on the Drake Warden in terms of flexibility, flavor, and utility. Luckily, as we level up, it keeps getting better with extra attack. So at 5th level we get 2 attacks and a bonus action attack from your Drake. But at 6th level we get Deft Explorer, giving us 5 extra feet of movement to help flank with our partner and get that sweet advantage. We also get a climbing and a swimming speed, but while the climbing speed is nice, the swimming speed may not be that handy unless you're a Dragon Rider pirate. Oh, that'd be cool. No, it's mine. I thought of it first. But it's 7th level where we... wait.
Who's that Pokemon?
Okay, so this might be my favorite part of the Drake Warden subclass as a whole. Your Drake actually evolves like a dingle-dangle Pokemon, becoming a medium creature and growing tiny wings so it can fly. On top of all of that, your Drake's bite becomes magical and does an extra 1d6 damage of the type chosen by its Draconic Essence. It gives you resistance to that type of damage, and you can ride your Drake like a big scaly horsey. While riding, you are too heavy for the Drake to fly around, but it makes mounted combat a breeze, letting you really live out that Aragon dream. 8th level gets us Land Stride so we can't get wrapped up by Audrey 2, 10th level gets us Nature's Veil so we can turn invisible for a turn as a bonus action, and we get yet another Deft Explorer ability with Tireless. As an action, you can give yourself 1d8 plus your Wisdom modifier and temporary hit points, which is a nice little boost, and you can recover from exhaustion on a short rest instead of a long rest, meaning the longest you ever get to sleep is 1 hour, which just kind of sounds like how I live my life. But at 11th level, our Drake finally gets to be a real dragon with Drake's Breath. Now you can pick one of the elements from your Drake's Draconic Essence and shoot it at the enemy in a 30-foot cone for 8d6 of the chosen type. This ability uses your spell save DC and forces a dex save for half damage if they succeed. But the best part is the damage from the breath does not have to match the type you choose when you summon the Drake. Meaning you can make the Drake immune to fire damage to fight a red dragon, but breathe lightning damage instead. You only get to use this ability once per long rest, but you can slap the dragon on the butt and spend a 3rd level spell slot to do it again. And oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, not only do you and your Drake share 1 brain cell, but you apparently also share 1 stomach because you can fire off this breath as well. Either way you spend your action, this ability is huge, even outshining the Dragonborn's natural breath, but that's not that hard to do. 14th level gets us Vanish, so you can hide as a bonus action, which isn't super useful because we already have Nature's Veil to let us be invisible as a bonus action. But finally, at 15th level, our little buddy evolves into its final form. Your little buddy is now your big buddy as they grow into a large creature big enough to ride around on or carry all your stuff. Their little vestigial wings grow into big beautiful wings so you can finally fly your dragon, and their teeth grow in nice and full, upping their bite attack to 3d6.
But wait! There's more!
Anytime you or the big boy over here takes damage, you can spend your reaction to give them resistance to that type of damage for 1 instance. Meaning your Drake can take a meteor swarm straight to the face, have full immunity on the 20d6 fire damage, and only take a quarter of the 20d6 bludgeoning damage assuming they made the save. All for the cost of just 1 reaction. And for those at home who know about the mounted combatant feat, well, your Drake can basically get away with 0 damage on that kind of save. But wait, if you can believe it, there's even more, because our breath attack actually also gets a buff to 10d6 here, making you and your Drake a defensive and offensive powerhouse, zipping around the battlefield and raining death from above. And that right there feels like a capstone if I've ever seen one. I mean, at 18th level you can basically see any invisible creature within 30 feet, and at 20th level you can add your Wisdom mod to 1 attack or damage roll per round to add a little extra punch or potentially turn a miss into a hit, but I mean, being best friends with a flying death machine, that's really hard to beat. So once again, I feel like I'm at a loss of words on a Ranger video. I really think it's wild that this poor class has had such a bad reputation for so long, but after looking at the Gloomstalker and the Drake Warden, I might be sold on at least these subclasses. My biggest complaint is not with the Drake Warden abilities, but with the Ranger abilities that seem like they add little to nothing or just don't mesh as well as they could have. However, as a person with a real love for Dragon Rider lore and way too many pets, I think the Drake Warden melds everything you want from this kind of archetype in the best way. In fact, I think this may be the best thing to come out of the Fizban's book, and that had the Ascendant Dragon Monk and the Elder Brain Dragon, which I think are both sick as hell. So if you've ever had a pet Steve Irwin wouldn't mess with, can belt a burp so rancid it'll melt through solid steel, and will constantly annoy the party by flying overhead and blaring the Pokemon soundtrack, guess what? You might be a Drake Warden. Hey guys, big thanks for making it this far and watching the video. If you like this one, make sure to share it, especially if you know somebody who's playing this subclass. More subs are coming up on the poll very soon, so check that out, and until next time, have a good one, and I'll see you soon.
You know who this is? No, who is this?
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Game. We are a tabletop talk show and podcast brought to you by Dungeon Studios. We go beyond live play, dive deep into every topic from session zeros to campaign heroes. The last few weeks, we've been missing a little somebody, and I hope you noticed that Russell is here with us today. Yes, you.
I don't know which way to point.
I know. Nope, that way.
Right.
Anyway. So everybody,
welcome back, Russell.
Back.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
I'm so glad he's back because we have been talking about, the holidays are coming up. You're going to have family, maybe some extra children around, and maybe you want to kind of rope them into a game of D&D, see if they're interested, or maybe they're interested. They want to learn about it. So I thought it would be a great time to talk about how to run D&D for kids, for family members. Maybe Grandma Edith is interested or just wants to join in so she's not left out. And how do you do that? So I'm so glad that we have Russell with us today. Otherwise, I don't know that we could talk about this. So stick around. But before that, I do have a big announcement. I have a couple big announcements for Dungeon Studios. One is...
Great.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they're great. I mean, they could be great for us. But
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing. We have been doing this podcast now for a year, pretty much, right? Since the beginning of the year. So
you guys have.
Well, right. I mean, same. I did
between
come in
all
right
of
in the
us.
beginning. Between all of us.
Between
The
all of us.
game
Right.
has
Game.
been on the air for a year, and we've talked about tons of subjects. And we think that maybe it's time to take a look at some other things we could do with the show to help grow it, to help entertain you guys, give you guys more value. So for the month of December, we are most likely going to be playing some best of episodes and probably producing some smaller things for you just to keep the engagement and to keep you guys in the loop. But we're going to take that time to kind of work on some things. We have some really big ideas for 2024.
Some plans
In the works. Some evil machinations. So just in the case of the month of December, you're like, what is this? I've seen this episode before. That's why. And
let's say to our listeners too out there, when we started the show, we wanted to bring a unique type of show, and we started with a podcast with some DMs talking about the game.
Yeah.
And then we're able to expand, and we got Russell and we got Amber, and we had to lose Merwin.
Mm-hmm.
It was always supposed to be sort of this council of DMs discussing things and then having guests. and it has been a unique show for a year. When
Yeah.
you look around at all the different shows out there. So, but we know we can tweak it up and give you a little bit extra. So
Yeah.
stand by and wait to see what we got coming.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
It's gonna be good. It's gonna
to
be
that
good.
point, if you're not subscribed already, make sure that you find us on YouTube. That's where we're going to start pushing some of our focus. But wherever you see us, like and subscribe so that you're notified or kept up to date when we start rolling out some of this new big stuff that we've got cooking up. All right. So with that, let's head into our topic. I wanted to ask you guys if you have played D&D with family members, even if it's not during the holiday, children who have no idea, no concept, grandparents, aunts, uncles, mom, dad, whoever. Like, have you had that experience?
Russell, you go first.
Um,
I'll yield to Russell first.
I have had a little bit of that experience. I mean, I think my dad played D&D with me briefly when I was a kid. I think he played once. My grandfather played with me once as a kid. As far as family go, not a huge amount. Although, I mean, last night I had Helen playing D&D. So she's started her first campaign. I think she's played about 10 sessions altogether now. So,
so she's DMing.
No. She's
Okay. I see.
Just playing.
Okay.
She did DM for me once, and it was exceptionally good. Actually, it was a science fiction scenario, but
interesting.
When we got to the end of that, I was playing a child trapped on a space station. So it was very psychological and interesting, and the aliens turned up in their very strange ship and so on. And
wow, that sounds
I had to get
fun.
my head around that while everybody in the space station's freaking out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty fun. But yeah, kids. I mean, I play with kids all the time, but not so much family.
Yeah.
And I do play with older people too. Like my friend Barry is 60 something, and I've got a lady on my stream funnily enough, from Nevada in the Burning Path, who's she's older than me, so I don't know exactly.
Yeah, you don't need to say age, right? If it's older than you is fine. That works.
She has
time here.
I believe she has kids and grandkids, so so she's an interesting one. So it's a lot of experience with a lot of different types of people, interestingly, but not so much family. Kids, lots of kids. Lots of other people's kids.
What about you, Doc?
So I have played with my daughter, and I guess she started playing about 2 years ago. Again, when I started playing 5e, she jumped in with our friends, and my friends were like, fine. And we're old gromnards, It was great to have this kid with us, poking, rules as written at us when we were like still 1-eing things, because we were just being old, gromnards. And then I was able to start DMing for their Girl Scout troop, which was really, really a lot of fun to have this group of girls, a 10 to 12, I guess. And I mean, kids are just so creative. And then we organized a group of our Thursday night old dudes kids started playing, and I started DMing for the kids. So I kind of felt like that was kind of family.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a dad would sit in or somebody else would sit in, and we were just like our D&D family, but our kids were able to sit in. So it got to be an intergenerational table for a few games. So that was a lot of fun as well.
Okay.
So those are really my experiences with kids and family personally.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah. So I started with my son when he was 8, right? That was like my first experience with DMing any kid. Figured he would be more forgiving because I'm his mom.
How old did we say Luke? How old did Luke tell us he was when he started playing? What didn't he say he was 8?
I think he said he was like 7 or I thought he said that's right. I was gonna say
he was going to be a man at arms. He was
4.
just a man at arms at 4. Okay, just so we have some scales. Okay, so your son was 8.
My son was
My
8.
daughter was 10.
And here's the thing: is I probably could have started earlier with him. It's just that I hadn't quite yet gotten enough confidence to run it. on my own
Right.
yet. But I think he could have grasped the concept, right? So started with him, and then eventually, boy, did he learn fast. And then he wanted to bring his friends in. And so I took my friend's two kids. And so I had this table of just three, I had two 8-year-olds and one 6-year-old at the table.
Oh gosh.
And it's definitely there are some things that you have to consider as a DM when you're running for kids that young. I think for kids in general, or people who have no concept of D&D. That's how I'm framing it, because I think the same applies if you're going to like bring in Grandma Edith. You have to kind of
Yeah, no, that's true.
explain
I was thinking
things.
that same thing. Yes.
Yeah, you have to
No matter
explain things
who.
in such a way. So yeah, I was just curious because since that's the topic of our, our discussion tonight, I wanted to see what you guys thought, like how you approach DMing differently for
Right.
those folks that have no concept of D&D.
Right.
And for
Okay,
kids,
now
because
that
I
makes
think running
sense.
for kids
No.
also there's an extra level of it, but then because adults can kind of wrap their brains around, I think maybe like role play a little bit better or things of that nature, like being a gracious loser maybe. But so there's different things you have to think of for kids, but then in general, the way that you approach teaching
Right.
D&D.
Right.
No,
I have a whole-
absolutely. Because go ahead, Russell.
Sorry. I have a whole spiel that I do at the beginning of games where I've got new players.
Yeah.
If there's one or two new players, or if it's a whole group, it doesn't really matter. But I start off with, okay, I'm going to explain the rules to you. This is your character sheet. This is where you find things on your character sheet. This is alphabetical. Okay, these are dice. This is a D20. It's called a D20. Can you guess why? And then we go through advantage and disadvantage, and I get them all to make a check off their character sheet just to see that they can do it. They have to roll, like an acrobatics check with advantage and with disadvantage. And then everybody knows how that works. And those are the very core basics of the game. Everything else can be explained on the go. So try to keep it as simple as possible and then engage them fast with role playing. And the thing I find personally is that people, kids or adults, it doesn't matter who, they engage with role playing before they engage with the rules, if they don't know the rules.
Yeah.
If they've already been taught to play D&D by someone that's very rules focused, that's how they're going to play.
That
if you
is an
get
excellent
them first,
point.
If you get them first, you have that opportunity to mold them and turn them into players that you like.
And that's such a really good example of that was my Girl Scouts, because I was playing this campaign, The Land, which I've talked about on the game before, this sandbox type situation. I do a lot of random encounters. I randomly roll a unicorn. They're all playing girls, and they all decide they're not going to just fight this thing.
Right.
And I don't know how many times I've been at a D&D table that there's an alignment conflict with a unicorn. Someone's ready to kill it right away. But these girls were totally like not worrying about rules. They always discuss like, wait, let's be quiet. We're going to like, shh, maybe we can feed it something. And then we're going to hide. And they weren't thinking about, do I need to make they were like, can I make a stealth check? Can I make a totally engrossed? And Russell, you just hit on it so hard, is move right into the role play, because that's what's going to get people buying a family to like all buy that. It also belief of what's about to happen,
right? And it also helps if the role play is centered on a tense situation, so that the moment that you throw them into the middle of things, if you can. People like to start in taverns, but I think with new players, that's not really very interesting. You can start really in the middle of something that's interesting happening now. I sometimes start them in prison or something like that, where they have to sort of sit around and look at each other and then start talking to each other to find out anything about each other before they get let out or something like that.
Yeah. It's so funny that you guys, I love that without even like, we didn't have any discussion before we started recording or doing this episode, but that you both said the same thing. And I also have experienced the same thing. because my son, who once he learned the rules, he was so excited about it. He tried to share it with his friends and get his friends to play. And for a while, he couldn't get his friends to play. And I asked him, I said, what are you telling them? Like how? And he goes, oh, I tell them about the whole player handbook and then this and the and he's just going through all the rules. And I said, next time you do that, pay attention to your friends' eyes and watch if they glaze over, because they don't care about, they have nothing to relate to all those nitty gritty details. So that's how I got his, two friends to come. And I basically did the same thing. I handed them a D20. I said, you're going to roll this for the majority of everything. Unless I tell you differently, this is your one die. Don't worry about anything else. Right. And I said, and then I showed them the player sheet and same thing. And then we just went straight to it. I think the hardest part actually was character creation for them, because as a young person, they don't really have any idea of what an archer, a ranger can do, or what, So, that was.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's actually a good suggestion. When you're playing with family members, is like, don't get steeped in that and go back to the old archetypes and just say
pre-gen characters.
Yeah.
Restaurant. I like what Russell said is, what do you want to be?
Yeah.
And then you sort of form them around. Somebody say, oh, I want to be like Conan. Well, I'm going to make you a barbarian. Or I want to be Merlin. I'm going to make you a sorcerer.
Yeah.
I think that's the way I did it with the Girl Scouts.
Yeah, I did the same thing too. Actually, I, especially for like the 6-year-old, she had a really hard time understanding character concept until I said, okay, what cartoons are you watching right now? Is there a cartoon character that you want to be like? Is that how you would want your character to be? And as soon as I said that, she goes, oh yeah. Who's the what? Starfire from Teen Titans. I'm like, perfect. I know exactly what to make. And I just made it for her. And then asked her a few questions here and there, but I just made that for her. And
now, Russell,
the thinking out for people, I think in the beginning, like rope them in and make that. What is it? The first one's free. Rope them in.
Right.
And then you can worry about the details.
Russell, you had said pre-gen. Yeah. Now, and then Amber just said she would make it after somebody said, you've done a lot of DMing. Have you ever just been able to hand a sheet to somebody?
Yes. Yeah.
Or is it too much?
No, it's well, I mean,
it's not.
If they've had no experience at all, you do have to show them their way around the sheet, and you do have to consistently do that especially through the first session, if it's just a one shot, or something like that. But, I mean, it's definitely way faster than trying to make a character when you're doing a one shot at a restaurant. You can't turn up and then spend an hour or 2 hours making characters, because that's.
No, and I think that's a good point for family too. Is if you're going to play at Thanksgiving, you want to have those pre-gens.
I mean, you can say to them, what do you want to play? If you've got family or what have you, definitely you should take that route. But then again, you should still give them a pre-gen. You should pre-gen the character that they've asked for as close to what they wanted, so that they don't have to sit through all the mechanics of it. With that being said, D&D Beyond, it's ridiculously easy to make.
I was just about to bring that up too. Have you used that random character generator on D&D Beyond?
Actually, I've only ever used it.
Actually, I can say I have used it, and I've seen how that has expanded. Yeah, because that was never even there.
Yeah.
That's just incredible now how far that's come along.
Yeah, because really. I could, once I've nailed down, let's say, okay, Starfire, let's do like sorcerer, blah, blah, and I can just do in the D&D Beyond, just say, random generator, but I want it to be a sorcerer and I want it to be 3rd level. And then everything else is randomly generated, including their equipment and like all that stuff just kind of gets pulled in, and it's so quick. And because it's on D&D Beyond, then it's easy to teach them how to use it instead of how to read. Well, I mean, it's like reading a character sheet, but it's also interactive, so they don't have to do the math and all that.
Right. I mean, and when you've got character sheets and you're in a restaurant, I'm going to keep using that example.
It's a good example.
I've been there many times with a pile of books and, play character sheets on paper, and, everything's pen and paper, and it takes so long to do anything. I want to cast. What does this spell do? A new player looking at a spell list, nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. Because you've got to go through the whole player's handbook list of spells and explain to them what an action and a bonus action and all that stuff is. I do a new spiel as we get to each step of the game. Once we get to a combat scene, then it's okay, we're going to do this, we're going to roll initiative, we're going to take turns, it's going to work like this, you're going to roll this to hit, you're going to have to armor class, damage, criticals, all that stuff. So a little short spiels whenever you need them, but not all at once at the beginning. That's just
info dumping. It there's only so much a person can take in before they kind of shut down, and so you want to just
I was gonna say I think even combat, when I was doing it with kids, it was more like, okay, first we're gonna roll to take turns. I was like,
well, actually I run a game on Friday afternoons for kids at the moment, and my tactic with them for initiative is we just go around the table. That's the initiative, and we'll go this way and then we'll go that way, we'll go this way and then that way around the table, and they're happy with that, and it works, and it's simple, and everyone remembers where they are, and I get to learn.
That's another good one for family if you're gonna swoop them on Thanksgiving. Is don't even worry about initiative and just go around the table.
This actually leads in all
the monsters go on your turn as the DM when it gets
right.
Don't have like layers of monsters where it's like DM1, DM2, DM3.
right you don't want the monsters to have initiative that's going to mess with anyway. Exactly.
But this leads in perfectly.
Another great advice,
because I wanted to ask about like rules that you've adjusted to make it like to simplify things. For example, when it came to the 6-year-old, when I included her, I kind of took away like damage dice completely and just said, okay, you have this type of weapon, it's just this set amount of damage, like you don't have to roll any dice. Basically, I took away any chance that they needed to roll anything differently other than a d20. Gave them one single dice. What are some things that you guys have done to kind of adjust? I can do a couple more.
I know one I can think of right off the bat as you mention it is for monsters. I use all those average numbers. I'm never like rolling up the hit dice. I'm never, and damage is usually the average number. And then even in some cases, I might fudge the average number for the scenario for the little kid or wherever we are. And say, okay, I'll roll a die 4 here. And
I fudge hit points up and down all the time. It doesn't matter who I'm running it for. I try to stick to the actual ones, but if they're smashing the shit out of it, then it's like, okay, this monster's got twice that many hit points. So just to give it more hit points until the combat feels satisfied. That's all.
And I think that's not just a family thing. I like to do a lot of that in combat, so combat doesn't get gloggy. When you have an archer or ranger who's going to do at least 50 hit points of damage here, and you got 2 zombies that just say, hey, you don't need to roll. You just take your 4 shots, 2 and 2. You take these zombies down. Now let's go against the bad guy. Your turn is over. Because I think that's going to work for family too, instead of watching somebody roll a billion dice and wait. Oh my God.
One of the issues I get with children running games for children is that they really love throwing dice on the floor. And it's really annoying. And especially when you're giving them the dice and you're in some public location and they're not going to give them back. They're going to lose them. So I have a rule, which is if you drop your dice on the floor, your next roll is with disadvantage.
Oh, I like that.
Immediately, suddenly, nobody's dropping dice except for that one kid who has like 5 disadvantages wrapped up, ready to go for the next 5 rolls. There's always one kid, but hey. The other thing is the timeout rule I've told you about before. Works with kids too. They get it. They know, okay, so I'm out of character. But if I'm not doing that, I'm in character. They get that naturally, and it really tightens up their behavior quite a lot. Because you're dealing with a lot of kids.
I've been a school teacher. So do you ever have the table like lose control where they're not listening to you? Like they're just sort of out on their own thing?
Yeah, I have props for that.
All right. I gotta see this. I'm excited.
It's nothing too special, to be fair, but I'll show you.
All right.
I don't know whether you're going to end up cutting this little moment while I'm messing around with my bag here, Amber, but
No, this is quite entertaining seeing the top of
quite
your head.
entertaining. All right, I should have really got this ready earlier, but I had it nearby.
We see his little Cthulhu back there that's hiding behind him.
Yeah.
That's all right.
This is what I pull out.
Okay.
Right,
Use
it's a little bell, and I start ringing that furiously until I have their attention.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
The other thing that I
like it.
have, which I can't lay my fingers on right now, is a little sand timer.
Yeah.
About yay big, and you just hold that up, and everybody goes quiet.
All right, Russell, you want to hear what I used to use for my outdoor educator, where you can't make noise, right? Because you're in the fields, you don't want to ring a bell or blow a whistle. Whistles are great. I love whistles. But anyway, we have the one where you go like this, and you do the quiet coyote.
Yeah.
So you take your hand and you just do this, and then everybody has to do the quiet coyote until they're ready. So I love the quiet coyote.
That's great.
I remember that from when my son was in grade school. Yeah.
I'm going to test that on Friday.
Yeah, but you have to cue them first. Say when you see the quiet coyote, everybody's got to get quiet and say it's really used. It's really used by field scientists because you can't speak. You're going to spook all the animals,
right?
Or in the case of D&D, you might bring all the monsters to you.
Right. Exactly.
So some things that I've done is depending on the age level, right? If it's like teenagers or Grandma Edith, then I've done where I look at their character sheet and go, oh, their weapon is only like 2d4 plus blah blah blah. So I'm giving them just the d20, 2d4s, and maybe like a d6 for some spell that they have. I'm only giving them the dice that they need. Yes. So that they aren't confused by anything else, and they know that these 2 dice are for when they want to do damage. This dice is for this, and this dice, and so that really makes it clear for them. Yes. The other thing I've done for if there's a lot of younger, again, people who have no concept, is I might start off and say, instead of a DC 15 for whatever they attempt, anything they attempt is just, if it's up to 10, then it fails, and 11 or higher succeeds, and just make it super easy and quick, and everybody knows that they failed or they succeeded without having to do math. That tends to help.
Yeah, I do things like I don't adjust the DC so much like that. I mean, I do adjust the DC. I don't leave it static, but I'll go around and I'll get everyone to roll. I say, okay, everyone make a perception check. Okay, who got above 15? And they put their hands up. Right, you passed.
There you go. That's a good one.
Yeah, we now we've got 8 players, so it's full on with 8 kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the one thing I want to bring back from Luke's episode, which we've already talked about this, folks. So if you haven't seen Luke's episode, it is episode 50. It's a milestone episode. Go back and watch it because he was amazing. And he gave us so many details that we weren't expecting, which is really cool. But he mentioned
today the sneaker site launched, but you still can't get in.
I know. So frustrating. But Luke mentioned that when he kind of introduced his daughter to it, that he was just doing it with like her stuffed animals and stuff. So if you are planning to do this and maybe you have some younger kids, start introducing this concept to them. Like if you're tucking them into bed, do a quick little like, oh, so, here's these 2 stuffed animals and they're heading into the forest and a bear shows up. Like, what would your stuffed animals do? And just talk it out so that they can start kind of understanding the concept of like role play or that,
I mean, you can literally make up a role-playing game with your kids if you want.
You totally can. With just about anything.
Right.
And
Lego.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I was thinking would be really fun with family to do a story, because it's got to be a one shot or whatever. We play with what we call story stones.
Yeah.
So like this is an example here. So this has got like a tent on it.
Right.
So you have a bunch of story stones and you put them down, and then they would be on the tent. And then as the game master, I would like play through, okay, there's a tent and then a castle and then a dragon.
Right.
And everybody sort of sees how it's going to lay out, the adventure lays out. So I'm thinking that might be something that works pretty well. And it sort of connects visual for someone that's never ever played before.
Right.
Like having a Ouija board or some device.
Right. Tarot cards or even rune stones or whatever. Yeah.
Something like that could be really intriguing to sort of hook them into playing too.
Well, and even
introduce that whole role play.
my regular players, and I wouldn't consider them newbies now, but even they have mentioned that it's so helpful to them to have a visual aid of like the location that they're in, because granted, it's not a one shot, we play monthly, but sometimes they just forget, like, oh, we're in a snowy place. Oh, okay. Like, so if I just have a little picture of like a snowy landscape up
Interesting.
on the table, it just kind of helps keep them in the moment.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I do that when I DM. I always put a background,
Yeah.
like where we're in the castle or we're in the outside or in the dark, because
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Absolutely.
One of the great things about where I'm running the game I do for kids is it's a place called Game Roost, and they really nice guy there. Trying to think of his name off the top of my head. What is his name? Oh my god, it's gone. Anyway, you might have to cut that bit. But they have this. I've got this massive table, and it's a game store, and next to me is this big plasma screen. So I plug my laptop into the plasma screen and widen out my desktop from my laptop,
Oh, I
and
love
I
it.
can drag Roll20 up there, and now I can play them. I can put YouTube videos on there. I can put my stream on there when when their parents are around. I can put my website on there.
Yeah.
So it's great for
Ah.
marketing, but at the same time, it's also awesome because we can use Roll20, and I can draw maps and incarnate and what have you, and they're amazed.
Yeah.
I've got tokens on Roll20 and move them around, and one of the games we ran, I had my battle map there as well, so we had the map on the screen, and then I redrew the key components on the battle map on the table, so they could sort of compare them and what have you, which was quite good.
Can I ask you a question? Now that we're talking about visual aids and you're talking about putting maps up, I know you like to run Theater of the Mind a lot. Do you find that you have to do that less with younger kids?
Theater of the Mind?
Yeah, that they struggle with theater of the mind and imagination and they need the visual? Or do you find that they can do theater of the mind?
It totally depends on the age and the kid, to be honest. I think there's a lot of variables there. If I was running a game with a bunch of kids I didn't know, I would definitely take some kind of visual stuff because it certainly helps, especially when there's a big group.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you will get confused about where everybody is, and you'll be surprised how mechanically minded some of these kids are. They know the game, and they know how to play D&D, and they know how much movement they've got and how many actions they can do and all of this sort of stuff. They've got it all figured out. They know their spells. They know this stuff better than we do, some of them. So they will keep you on your toes. So keeping it clean is quite important when you're running with kids sometimes, because they'll surprise you.
Yeah.
You need to know how far away things are and that sort of thing. But they also, I have to admit, they're also quite forgiving when it comes to fudging things around the board.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like if you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to move this guy here or do this thing, or you're not there, you're here, or this guy wasn't there, he was over here, or something,
Wow.
whatever.
Must be my son and his friends. That's not usually my experience. They're like, that's not what you said. And then I have to literally stick to what I said.
Stick to your guns. Yeah. Sometimes it's better to stick to your guns than to do the right thing.
What about you, Doug?
Amber, it's funny you said that because I didn't think about it, but I think when I designed the land, I designed it with beginners in mind. I took this piece of artwork, which is a old black and white map of an area, and then it has small circles so that there's like a larger picture of those areas, and those areas all I kind of designed as encounters.
Right.
So this picture is always in the forefront, and then I give it to them so they have it because we play online, so it's in the chat, they can look at it whenever they want.
Right.
Do you want to go to Green Man Falls, or do you want to go to the Elf Tree, or do you want to go to the... So I think that is a key focus.
Yeah.
But then when you talk about monsters they know, like a unicorn, you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
They're all in. You don't, they're even asking you, what color is it? What color is its mane? What color its hooves? And does it have a name?
Because it might be a My Little Pony.
Right. You need to,
Might
so
be.
all of a sudden, does it have a marking? Does it, does it have a... So anyway, but then if it's something like a gibbering mouther, instead of me saying it's a blob with these mouths and eyes, or I might just start doing this sound effect and show them an image of her.
Yeah.
You see this.
Yeah.
And that's the other one with kids and, you don't have to say what the monster is.
No.
Yeah.
People are playing what is it? What is it? What's its defenses?
You don't know.
You just show it to little kids, and they're like, "All right, I'm going to use my sword. I'm going to
Right.
So I think it's fun that way. And then I let them make up names for things.
Yeah.
Right. That's great.
You know, what are you guys going to call this thing? And then they go back to town and say, "We saw the blobby mouther," and then someone will say, "Oh, that's known as a gibbering mouther." So they get that kind of experience in the game, I think, is important, that a lot of people lose right away.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
the mystery of what things are and discovering things.
Well, speaking of mystery, one of the things I've noticed lately is how hard it is to create mystery in the D&D system. The D&D system particularly is fucking hard to use to make it mysterious. The main reason, and one of the main reasons, is as soon as you say
excuse me,
roll for initiative, everyone's like, well, we know what's going to happen. You know, it doesn't matter whether there's monsters there or not. They know there's going to be something happening. So, I mean, I tend to circumvent that by getting everyone to roll for initiative sometimes hours before it even happens. At the beginning of the session, just roll for initiative just in case, because sometimes that happens, blah, blah, blah. You know, just make it a thing. And at the end of the encounter, roll for initiative. But the system itself really doesn't facilitate that kind of tension.
You know, that's interesting that you say that, because I actually have a system, and I didn't realize I do this until you just said that. But what I do is I will lead the party into some sort of mystery, and I will allow, like, if they fail a check or something, they're sneaking around, whatever, and I know that there's a monster around, I'll go ahead and let the monster attack first. It's a surprise round. And things happen, and then I let them do initiative once they know that it's actually, because sometimes I'll even give them a chance to, they've done this to me where I set up an encounter. It was supposed to be a battle. The monster attacks, but then they do something where they scare the monster away. They polymorph it into a little bug. Like they basically nerf it within the first round. Right. And so then I'm like, oh, well, then there's no point in doing initiative. That's fine. You know, but I kind of let the thing happen first before I even mention initiative, so that they don't know anything's coming.
Yeah.
I think with the Girl Scouts, the thing I try to bolster with them is it's about teamwork and not about your order in initiative.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is something I talk to all players about. Just because you rolled a 21 doesn't mean you need to go first.
Yeah.
You can hold an action.
You can hold your action. You can talk to somebody in, you know, who's next to you, or say, hey, can you do this? Because that's what adventurers would do.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of just I hit it with my sword.
Right.
And kids, and I try to say that to kids too a lot, is think about, right, you're going first, but what are you going to do? And take that pause beforehand. I know with regular players, we hate to wait, right? But I think it's really important to give new players wait time. Again, as an educator, wait time is critical.
Yeah, you have to have some grace and patience for new players. And Russell said he uses a timer. So using something like a timer for that kind of situation, like for kids and new people, I think is really, really important.
I mean, I only pull the timer out when people are taking an interminably long time, especially spellcasters.
No, but I'm just even saying the wait time. Make the wait time like 30 seconds, or have a set time or a timer, so the kids know when you hear this ding, I'm going to come and ask for your actions for that round. So they have a minute to like kind of look at it.
For sure, yeah.
You know, so going back to you know, running it for the Girl Scouts, right? So when I ran that game where I had the 6-year-old girl, watching 2 8-year-old boys and a 6-year-old play, just the 2-year difference, there was you could tell the 8-year-olds, their imaginations, and it might just be their personalities too. It's not just the age, but their imaginations were already like, I know I can try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. Whereas when it came to her turn, she kind of was very confused about like, what can I do? And even when I explained like, well, what do you want to do? Is there anything, like, she just was very like confused about what is possible. So I had to really prompt her to say, well, you're in this room. I explained that this happened. Are you curious about what's on the table? Do you want to check out this hallway? Do you want to look around the room? There's a dead body on the ground. Like whatever it is, maybe not dead. I don't know. I don't remember what I did, but
Right.
really try to prompt her because she
Yeah.
just couldn't fathom what her character could do.
Right.
Um, yeah, so that's something I think to consider for brand new players, and maybe just I would say
Yeah.
I don't want to say unimaginative. That sounds bad, but I've even had adult players, new adult players who just didn't quite understand the concept until they got through a full session.
Right.
So prompting with ideas of what your characters can do might
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that theater of the mind is not easy for people, especially, and I would think for kids that have come up in a video age. Theater of the mind is a lot more difficult.
in a way, I think
Yeah.
there's aspects of it that they totally get because it's just make believe, and it's that
Okay.
simple. So if you put them in character and make them talk, they get into it. They're surprisingly good at it, actually. But I mean, you do get kids that are quite introverted that don't want to do it from time to time, and to be honest, they're the minority. And yeah, you got to give them some space. I think that's a big thing. I had one kid turn up that he didn't speak English. He spoke a little bit of English, but he spoke mostly Mandarin. And fortunately, I'd lived in China for 3 years, so I speak a little bit of Mandarin. So that kind of brought him out of his shell just enough. But he was also, I think, I'm just guessing, but I think he might have been very autistic as well. And he didn't say much, or he participated very oddly in the group. But we all got together and we all supported him to get through the game, and he did. And he had so much fun. His mum was so pleased with him and with the game and so on. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's great. Yeah, that's a great story.
it's good when it
I like
happens.
that.
So when you start explaining, like, okay, we're getting ready to start playing this game, and you explain about that you're the DM and you're running the game, and that, I mean, for example, like the 2 8-year-old boys would come up with some really off the wall ideas about things, and I'd have to kind of shut it down and go, well, your character
Yeah.
can't do quite that. And
Yeah.
then, have you had to, what's the word I'm thinking of, like prep the kids and explain, like, what I say goes.
Yeah.
There can be some back and forth, but once I make the decision, you have to follow it. Like, how do you guys handle that?
Well, how do you do it, Doc?
I was gonna say, I think I don't say dungeon master. I don't like dungeon master kids. No,
Yeah.
not going there. I'm a referee.
Mm-hmm.
I think I tell kids I'm a referee, and I tell the kids that it's the monsters. I have to play the monsters because nobody else is playing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not playing against them. I'm playing for the story to move forward. I just happen to have to play the monsters because you happen to be playing the players. And I'm the referee. And I think kids have a complete, at that point, it doesn't seem to matter.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're saying. So yes, and I do say that I'm usually open for subjective debate.
Mm-hmm.
What does your creative mind want to tell you? And I'll try to mold it around the rules. But when I get to the rule and say we're rolling it or yes or no, my referee rule is final.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll say as a referee or an umpire. I make the final call.
You also find that a lot of the time there's usually one person in the group that has played D&D and that does get it, and they will oftentimes leap in there and tell them for you. And that if somebody else can explain it for you, that's great for me. It means I can sit there and do nothing.
I even find that there's someone that plays something else that's similar. Like they get how hit points work, or they get how armor class works right away because they play a game or something that
makes that. Yeah.
I mean,
universal.
I play some D&D, and I still have players that know way more about D&D than I do. Way more about the rules and the spells and the mechanics and everything. I mean, I've got a pretty good idea, but I certainly don't have specific memory of every spell.
Right.
So
Sorry.
No, Doc said something, and now I want to ask Russell if you've experienced this, but he mentioned about, like, it may look like I'm against you guys because I'm running the monster, but I'm not. Have you had to have that conversation with the kids that you run for?
Not with the kids, actually.
Not with the kids, with the grown-ups.
With the grown-ups, yeah, for sure.
That's funny.
I meet random people in bars and play D&D with them. I don't know who they are. And at least one case, I had a group of players said, yeah, this guy's going to turn up in about 20 minutes. Now, he's a real power player, and he always gets into trouble, and he always gets us killed, and we just don't want that to happen. So we're warning you in advance. So
okay.
Had that happen.
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, I think for me at least, I just have this DM persona that I put on. It's like, okay, I'm DMing now. Whatever I say goes, and I just don't put up with any shit from anyone.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the rule. And they get used to that pretty quickly because I'm also pretty funny sometimes, you know, and going back and forth between being entertaining and silly and stupid but being serious when it needs to be serious. They get the idea.
Yeah, the DM, the only time you get to be a judge and a comedian at the same time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I was really curious because I guess with a one shot, maybe it wouldn't make so much of a difference. I feel like with a one shot, I would be a little more lenient with any kind of rulings, but I definitely have one player who I know she really kind of, I don't want to say pushes my buttons. She doesn't push my buttons, but she definitely tries to push the rules a lot. Because and what she says makes a lot of sense. It's just, you know, D&D is not set up for that. And so I'm constantly having to make these rulings where it's like, oh, she's not going to be happy about this, but this is where, and then she's great about not arguing about it at the table, but there's this stress level from me that like, oh, she's pushing on this now, and now this, and now this. Oh, like, you know, and so as a DM, you know, if you're going to run a one shot and you've got like, you know, Uncle Larry or somebody joining in, you might have one personality at the table who's really going to try to push because they want to win or because they feel like you're against them.
Right.
So just don't.
Well, they feel that because they're paying you, you owe them.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. I did have to. I have somebody in my campaign. I did, like Russell said, I had to say, look, man, I was a grown up. I had to say, look, I'm not against you. And they were like, well, that's what you think.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm
just not cut out for D&D, you know, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's not even that. I think in the moment, you know, you sometimes get hurt. But afterwards, and I wanted to say this about family D&D. I was thinking about this in the beginning of the show. I have played with family on other occasions when I was younger.
Right.
Played 1E, and I mentioned this. I still have not forgotten playing with my cousins, playing 1E, B1, the worst adventure on the planet. I DM'd for them. They loved it. I have never seen these cousins again.
Right.
But I still remember that more than anything else.
Do you wonder whether do they remember that? I bet they remember.
Well, and I don't even know if I can get in touch with these cousins. Like they're like second cousins. They're down in you know, like I don't even know if I can reach out to them and say, "Do you remember that?" But I know I do.
Right.
Yeah.
More than anything else, I remember or trying to get my other cousins to even play, and they didn't like it.
Yeah.
Or having my cousin's son. Remember that board game Dragon where they had the little cards which had the players and little chits?
Right.
Wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, so I played that with him. And for years, he was like, I remember when your Uncle Mike played Dragon with me. So some of those games have really, really helped keep memories with family. So it's a good thing to think about doing. Because remember that Thanksgiving when we played Dungeons and Dragons? That was fun.
Right.
You know, it sort of takes the focus off of the let's not talk about let's not anything and let's just have fun. You know?
Yeah.
Just to put that out there, I wanted to mention that I really do still think about those times.
I think at the end of the day, I mean, what you strike upon there is exactly right. And that's the game is about having fun. And if you are the DM, you are responsible for the player's fun, one way or the other. You know, they are also somewhat responsible for their own actions and for their own fun. But at the end of the day, you're the dungeon master and it's in your hands. You have the most control to rectify those types of issues and also to mess them up. So you've got it's very easy for the DM to destroy a game, much easier than for any one player, which is why you have to probably think about it, and some experience helps, you know. But
So,
Running games.
I wanted to touch base on what Doc said. I hadn't thought about that, but so I had the opportunity to pull my mother-in-law into a game. It was a few years ago.
Okay.
But here's the
Okay.
thing. So she's she had no she was one of those people that had no concept at all. And she's
Right,
just like,
right.
just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And she's just this cute, kind of like, older woman. But so I said, okay, well, what kind of character would you want? So I started with that. And she said, oh, I want like a half unicorn, half dragon, bard with wings, and like just the crazy. And I was like, you know what? Sure, whatever you want. Let's just get you in here. And then she had seen that I had miniatures from Hero Forge. She goes, well, how do I get one of those? And I'm like, we're only playing once, right? You want a miniature? She's like, yeah, I want a half unicorn, half dragon, bard, whatever. And I'm like, okay. So I got onto Hero Forge with her and we designed this character because I have a 3D printer so I could print it, right?
Nice.
So it was like $5 for the STL file.
Oh,
I
gosh.
literally was like feeding her.
You gateway drugged her.
I gateway drugged her. I was like, you want this? Let's do this because I want you to try this. Because it had been years that she'd been hearing me talk about this. And finally she agreed to try it. So I printed out her STL file, which I'm going to show you right
even
now.
excited for her playing.
I even painted this. So let's see if you can see that at all.
Oh, yeah.
So basically it's like got a, where am I going? Here we go. It's got like this mermaid dragony tail, wings. She's got like a unicorn head. And then, the magic and stuff. So anyway, so I went ahead and printed this thing for her. And it was somewhere around the holidays that we were going to play. And she only played that one time. We didn't even get through the entire one shot because we had more players than we had expected. Everything was taking longer. So we just kind of like wrapped it up real quickly. And I mentioned to her that we were going to be recording this episode. I'm going to show off her mini. I'm going to talk about her character. But I forgot her character's name. And she texted me. She goes, oh, Mimika. Oh, I remember Mimika. Oh my gosh, it was so she has this very vivid memory and she had a
memory
great
of
time.
it. Good. We're getting the feedback from
but it was like
else.
she remembered the name. I would not have ever expected her to remember the name of this character, but she totally did. She's invested. So make it a good experience for them and they will come back.
Yeah.
That's what you want with your family, good experiences.
Yeah.
That's what life's all about.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I mean, it's kind of the same sort of approach that I take to running any game with strangers, because at the end of the day, if I can get them to go from a one shot to a campaign, that's good for me.
Right.
I get new players, so that's great. So whenever I go to Dice and Fork, which is the restaurant that I run games at mostly, every table that you sit down with is a group of people who are potential players for a campaign. Yeah. So you want them to love it, and it works. If you can get them to love it, you might find yourself that's your Wednesday from now on.
Right. Well, and I've learned my experience with pulling in new players is like, because I was going to mention this for you, like if you pull in new players, you can't really be too lenient on the rules, because then if they sign up for a campaign, they're going to go, what the heck? This isn't at all like what we did before. But for me, I feel like, because I don't have to deal with paid players, is if I can get them in, if I can adjust the rules, if they need me to adjust the rules to make things super simple so that their brain doesn't explode and they have a good time, I find that the more they play, they start craving the extra challenge. And then I can go, oh, well, now let's play rules as written and see how you like it,
Well,
but at least I can pull them in.
On that note, I just introduced exhaustion into my campaign.
Yeah, we talked about. So how did that work?
Yeah, well, I saw a few people went, oh fuck.
Did they go like, that's not fair?
They didn't complain about it, but they were like, they were seriously considering the implications of it. So it certainly struck them. They didn't go unnoticed.
That's cool.
So, now it's funny, Amber, you were talking. And Russell, I had asked you earlier about using pre-gen character sheets. And I came across another idea. Amber, you're talking about you run a one shot or a campaign or whatever. Do either of you use magic item cards or item cards, or would you use them for a family if you're doing a one shot? So when someone gets an item, it's like, bam, here it is.
Yes.
I was just wondering, have you used them, Russell? You utilize that stuff with the
I've
kids?
made them.
Okay.
When
Bing.
when my wife first started playing D&D maybe 4 years ago or 5 years ago, I made cards for every spell that she had and for every character trait and so on. So she had a stack of cards that she could go through, and they were all on little square. What do you call them? Not post-it notes.
Index cards.
Index cards. Yeah, all on index
Okay.
cards. And now, of course, I've got like boxes of these spell cards sitting up here.
Right.
But then they would have been perfect. But I actually never used the spell cards because they're too cumbersome.
Yeah. When you have D&D Beyond at your fingertips or the internet, sometimes those, but the magic item cards, here's the thing. So
well, as I'm saying, you would just bring the 5 cards you need for that one shot.
Right.
You know?
So for my regular game, I have always thought it's so much fun because I see it on Critical Role when he hands them a card and they're just like, woo, they get to grab it and read it. And so I've always thought about doing it, but I have never actually done it in my home game. And this happened in my last, I'll get to it for the My Week in Gaming if we do My Week in Gaming. But this last session, there's this magic item that one of my players has, and it allows her to cast haste on characters. And there's always the question of what does haste do again? And so she ended up writing on an index card really quick, like, when I use this thing, you get this plus this minus this or whatever. And she wrote it out on the card. So every time she casts it, she just hands it to a player and then takes it back. And I noticed it last session and I went, that is so smart.
That is good. That's
and
good.
So yes, for a one shot, like I would think if you do have pre-gen characters, if there are spells, maybe do those cards, so that people remember like, oh, I'm blessed right now, or oh, I'm, whatever.
And also,
you're
inspiring. I was gonna say, also check them because man, I got really mad at D&D Beyond. I got the Ring of Jump, and you go on D&D Beyond and you put that thing in, and you know what it says? It does. It's the same as the jump spell in one sentence. And then you have to look up the jump spell. And then the jump spell in one sentence says you can move 3 times your movement rate.
Yeah.
Why did they just say that in Jump Ring in one sentence? So check the cards before you use them with your family, that they don't refer to another card.
Right.
Speaking of pre-gens, this is the packet that I turn up with. One of 2 packets. Nice. These are the 3rd level character sheets. All the thing. But what I was thinking, now that you're talking to me about cards and what have you, I'm thinking I could use those cards that I've got up there, the spell cards, and I could put each character sheet in one of these. There's a lot more work involved, and there's a lot more of these involved. So they're not cheap either, to be fair.
Yeah.
Relatively cheap. But yeah, each player could get a packet with a set of spell cards and possibly even a paragraph backstory with some notes about contacts and who that type of stuff.
Yeah.
That would be pretty useful.
Well, and again, we talk about, paid DM and what you get and what it comes with, and what's the package.
Yeah.
Basically,
it all impresses people too.
As a DM, whatever you can take out of your new players' hands so that you can just get to it, that's probably what you want to do.
Well, my mind was so D&D Beyond, and then I hear Russell saying with kids, and I've been a teacher for so long, so my brain just keeps thinking about all these different things. He could do this, and Russell could try this, and he could try this with kids. He could do this, and he could do this.
Give it to me, man. I'll use it.
Yeah. So
I need every tool I can get.
Since we were talking about before about jumping straight into the action or the role play, and then worry about the game explain the game mechanics as you move forward. Right. What about like when you start the session, the very first session with new players, do you just explain to them all, you're an adventuring party, you already know each other, or well, I'm sure Russell, I can imagine you don't do that, but how do you get them to kind of quickly be a team?
Right. So that's a great question. And I've got some tactics for that. But I want Doc to go first because I'm going to talk.
I will go first. And again, we go right back to my setting, the old forest. And there's this one town called Yaywig. And whenever anyone arrives at Yaywig, the town is abandoned. It's like almost no one there. There's Lady Jane Mordron, who's the patron. She's a young female. And then she has her man at arms, Scarlet Valles. And Scarlet Valles is like, imagine, musketeer, swashbuckler, woohoo, and wee. And he invites all adventurers who come in the gates. And as soon as they come in the gates, he says, "We need adventurers. You must all come together." And then he usually leads the first party out. And then like they get to the bridge and he's like, "Good luck." And he leads them. He's like, "Good luck." And then they're all adventurers, and then they have to introduce themselves on the road. And then I let them do that kind of thing. So it's never we're at the bar. Now they can come back to the tavern. They might come back after an adventure and go relax at the tavern. But
but by then they've already adventured together. So
right.
Yeah.
And Scarlet Valles always swoops everyone up as you enter. And the old forest hasn't had adventurers.
Right.
The town's abandoned. You're Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're the only hope.
Yeah.
Is basically what it's
a call to action. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a new technique for this, for kids especially. With this group that I put together for Fridays, first of all, they all have the Winter Queen is essentially their patron. They're not warlocks, but the Winter Queen is who they work for in the Feywild. And so
is that by your discretion? You chose that? Okay.
Yes, I chose that. And so they all know that from the very, very beginning. You're all working for the Winter Queen. There is a red cap named Boots, who is your go-between, who's going to hang out with you. We have a scene at the beginning where they meet the Winter Queen, and then Boots gives them some equipment and stuff and tells them what they're going to do. But they also get a tattoo where every member of the party has this tattoo called the Wintertide Sigil. It has a number of properties. The first property is the bond of frost. The sigil allows the adventurers to feel each other's general emotional state and direction, facilitating better teamwork. Chill of fate. When all party members are in agreement and focused on a common goal, the sigil provides a temporary boost to their abilities.
Oh, I like that.
That's on that.
That encourages teamwork.
Right. Winter's Reward. The sigil has 3 icicle markings. Each time a key objective is completed, an icicle lights up. When all 3 are lit, the sigil's full powers unlock, granting each member a personal boon from the Winter Queen. This acts as an incentive for them to complete their quest and work together. The price of betrayal. If any member acts in a manner that is directly counter to the team's mission, the sigil will crack, causing them minor harm and alerting the others to the betrayal. So they know all this from the very beginning, and it is remarkably effective.
That is
and now I'm thinking,
great tactic.
If you do this with your family, design a family sigil.
Right.
Yeah. Or even, family. I mean, I don't know how.
That's great.
Yeah, I would say like even just like on cardboard, right? Like everybody's
just
doing Amazon orders.
Sigil,
But I mean, what I'm saying is to have a physical token of this, whatever.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
That if someone does something that, like you said, is against it, you can kind of take that cardboard and just kind of like rip. And that's a very bless you. Physical representation of this thing. That's a really good idea. I love that tactic.
So let me ask you this, Russell. Have you ever made kid tattoos for your players so that they actually have their sigils on them?
I have, actually, yeah.
Nice.
One tattoo in particular that was on the back of what was the name? Leaf Mistralath. He had a tattoo on the back of his neck given to him by a black unicorn who said, "Fear not." What did he say? "Fear not the matriarchs of Abnog Gur." So yeah.
Nice.
No, that's
nice.
Yeah, I think yeah, when it comes to one shots, right? I don't know about you guys. Well, and Russell's a professional, but I feel like my brain is coming up with a one shot. It should take 4 hours. 9 times out of 10 does not take 4 hours. I have basically learned to really minimize my one shot ideas. And then when we start the adventure, like they are literally right in, I'll basically explain the scenario, explain why they're together, whatever tactics we want to use to encourage that they're already a team. And then, for example, let's say there's this one shot I created that was kind of like Harry Potter-ish feel, and they had to explore this mansion and find 3 magical animals that got loose. And so I started the adventure. They're already right in front of the house. There's no, they're not starting somewhere else where they got to find the house. They got to gather information.
Quest givers and all that shit. Don't worry
Yeah.
about the quest givers. Take the quest givers out if you can.
Yeah. Whatever you can do to, and then when you, if you're trying to create a one shot instead of like a module or anything like that, limit it to like probably one encounter. one encounter.
I was gonna say my big thing when you talk about a one shot, I think of 3 acts. It's a 3-act play.
Yeah,
somewhere in that 3-act play, you're gonna have one combat scenario, one kind of role for skills, and the other one is sort of miscellaneous
role playing.
And then
you can do your three pillars of D&D: exploration, role playing, and combat. If you want, that's a great formula.
You gotta hit 1-1-1, and it's got to be a good tie together.
It's got to be a very much a 1-act play. You don't have time for set up, conflict resolution. You've got to fit all of that into 1 act, and then you've got your 3 pillars. So it kind of is a 3-act thing, but still, there's a central question at the beginning: do the thing or not do the thing, and then do the thing. That's
I think the other thing that works well sometimes in this case, and I'm going to talk about Castle Sucre, which is one of my favorite kid-friendly adventures. And they call it a one-shot, right? But it's sort of the same thing. There's this scenario where it's the land of candy, right? So you got this castle that's made of candy, and then this area outside. If you play the area outside with kids, you don't make it to the castle in a one-shot. You can't, because the role play part in the castle where you meet some family members, you can't go through it with beginners because they're still trying to. So I will tell them what they did outside of the castle and make it, like Russell said, introduce them into the role play so the characters already do this and that and this and that. Maybe throw a skill check in there,
right? So
that whole first 3 acts goes real fast, and then play 3 acts at the end. It's kind of like, tell us more of a story for the first 3 acts.
See, and I love the fact that we're talking through 3 acts, like a 3-act structure kind of a thing. Because what I do is similarly, I didn't realize I was thinking in 3 acts, but I kind of create timestamps for myself where it's like, I know that if let's say I want to complete this thing in 4 hours, right? I will overestimate anyway, basically what I'll do is, okay, the first hour, they have 1 hour in my brain. I'm not telling them this. 1 hour to get through this first act. And if they haven't gotten through it, then I will come up with a few ideas on hand to like, how do I move the action so that they can move on to the next.
You got to railroad them at the end of that time.
Whether it's I move the monster, whether it's, you find a magical door that ends up leading them to the area that they hadn't gotten to yet. And then now the second hour, okay, now we're in the second act. And then the third hour, and I always have these little ideas to make sure I'm pushing the action. And then the fourth hour is kind of the buffer of they are going to role play. Okay, now we've beat the bad guy. What about like looting the body and the epilogue kind of a thing of the adventure. So if I keep those timestamps in mind, it definitely helps me with pacing the adventure so that we actually get it done in 4 hours.
Right.
Because that's the hardest part, I think.
I don't think I've ever squeezed one. I don't think I've ever squeezed one shot.
It's good to have an ending for your one shot that is a little bit flexible in the sense that you can tighten it or control it. So you might have for example, or probably a bad example is to have waves of enemies at the end so that you can say, okay, well, that was the last wave, and you don't need to go any further than that.
Right.
Yeah, but certainly there's a lot of intuition involved, isn't there, as far as time?
When it comes to one shots, and if you have like let's say you're waiting for the turkey and you got 4 hours, like you got to be able to wrap that up when turkey's done. People want to eat, so.
And Amber, I think you showed me. Amber, you showed me in our design for Paranax, the abandoned mansion.
Right.
I think when I originally designed that, there's only 3 rooms.
Yeah.
And that makes a good one shot. There's 3 real good things.
I was going to say, in fact, three scenes is what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the
So it's
larger the
interesting.
space, the more for them to explore and the longer
Right.
everything takes.
Right.
And I think that's what Castle Sucre is. The outside is supposed to be one scene, but they made it a little bit too large.
Right.
And then the inside, you have the children that you meet, and then you know, a BBEG, of course,
Yeah. Something.
Right.
for a finale.
The other thing that I do at the beginning often, and sometimes it's a mistake because sometimes it does take too long, but I try to throw in here's like the rules, here's the campaign setting, and so here's a 2-minute video about my campaign setting. Play that.
Yeah.
Usually they like that. And then a little bit of explanation about it and questions and answers so that they have time to sort of take that in. And the thing is, if I'm running a one-shot in a restaurant, really, it doesn't have to be set in my campaign setting. It could be really generic. But I do like to spend those few minutes just kind of pushing the idea of this campaign setting and selling it to them because, you know, they get excited about it.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think that's very important. And like you said, to have that immersive role play experience.
right.
It doesn't make sense. We could be just playing Monopoly and you open the board.
Right.
Yeah. So I think this is a pretty good time here for us to take a quick break. And then when we come back, Doc, you had a magical Q&A and we can finish the rest of our discussion on running D&D for kids and family members. So during the break, you're going to see a bunch of comedy skits, music parodies, probably a few of our deception checks from Dungeon Studios, and possibly a bad lip reading, all funny stuff to kind of, you know, give you a little palate cleanser from our discussion, and then you'll be ready for more. This is a good time during the break also to make sure that you subscribe if you haven't, because as I mentioned previously, and if you missed the beginning of the show, we've got a bunch of plans in the works. We're cooking up some stuff. And so 2024 is going to be a really big year and you're not going to want to miss out. So make sure that you like, subscribe, tell all your friends so they don't miss out. And then just as a reminder, most of December, we will be playing our best of episodes. So some of these episodes that we've been talking about, that we've been referencing, if you missed them and you don't find them on our YouTube, wait until December. We'll probably play them again and you can watch them and feel like you were there. So anyway, we're going to take
So here's the thing. We may be there chatting. So it will be like you're there. So check it out.
Yeah, because that's the thing is we do get into the chat and we interact with you. So if you have questions during the episode, even though the episode's not live,
I'm going to be on my phone
Studios,
in the bathroom, taking a shit, answering your questions. Sorry.
Just imagine, yes, you want to ask Russell a question, he might be on the shitter. So anyway, folks, all right, we're going to take our break and we will see you in a minute. Hey folks, it's Giddis with our tabletop talk show, The Game. Did you know that I have my own YouTube channel? It's called Purdy Nerdy. What would you need it for? Well, Purdy Nerdy is a channel focused on world building for authors and tabletop gamers. Don't have time to prepare? Looking for something unique? Is world building a challenge for you? Why don't you outsource your ideation process? The Purdy Nerdy Talk Show interviews authors and DMs to get you an inside and in-depth look at where they get their ideas from and how they create. Authors like Journey Windrow.
Oh my, I have bouncing boobies or something. And it's not how women think.
And Bob Magoo.
Shockingly, meth wizards are not the most marketable of things. I write a series about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction. 30% of people are like, oh my God, you have to tell me more. And 70% of people are like,
meth.
Okay, they back away slowly.
And coming soon, an interview with professional DM and co-host on the game, RKDM. Paolo Garbanzo, who you've recently seen on the game, shared on the Purdy Nerdy Talk Show his homebrew world Earth because it's 20% smaller than Earth. I offer tips that'll help you enhance your gameplay. Unique and fresh ideas to help you world build and create. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out. Like this, or like this. Which side is it? This side. Thanks for getting Purdy Nerdy with me.
Big Papa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know those pig things I keep talking about?
Uh-huh.
Man, I've been worried about the little fellas.
You have?
Humans cannot get enough of them. They're eating the shit out of them.
Still?
Yes.
Well, we've done so much to discourage. We made them ugly as hell.
Oh, I know.
We made them roll around in filth and shit all day.
Yeah, they didn't give a hint of a fuck about that.
Are you serious? Why would you want to eat something covered in filth and shit?
I don't know at all.
We made them all fat and terrible looking?
We did that, and then humans decided to start these fairs and have competitions to see who could end up raising the fattest, grossest shit pig of them all. They have shit pig ribbons.
What the hell is wrong with that?
I don't know. It's
They'll make a
fucking crazy.
competition out of fucking anything, huh?
It's wild.
What about the weird noise we made come out of their shriveled little mouth? That didn't encourage them? Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not doing it very well at all, but yeah,
I think it made them want to make more different dishes and have fun little names for them, like the oinker.
If they taste good enough, humans will kill almost anything.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, what if we made pigs hot as shit? Hot as hell.
No.
Super hot.
I don't think that's going to work at all. Yeah. I mean, it's never worked before.
Yes,
We don't want
cows,
to go down that road again.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah,
made
the
cows
udder-
way too sexy. 4-nippled tit right between their crotch.
Of
Can't
course,
do that again.
of course. We got anything else?
Yeah, I've got it. Yes.
Always got some back
I've got
pocket
it.
stuff.
I've got it. What about this? It's this little thing called cholesterol. All right. I just boom right into my head. God, I'm brilliant. All right. What happens is slowly over time, it builds and builds and builds, and eventually just stops your blood in your body, in its tracks.
Artistic.
Pretty daunting, huh?
You think that'll work? All right.
All right.
I'll put it in.
That's settled.
As you were.
All right. As I was.
What were you whizzing? I'll go.
Why are you always making me climb in the smallest of places?
Well, Jerry, this is the best way to get to the podcast that we need to steal this week.
It's always
like we do every week on Mondays.
Mondays, every Monday.
Religiously.
Sometimes I wish we could just walk through the door, but yeah. Every Monday on where do they find it?
On Spotify, Apple, anywhere you can find podcasts. That's where we are.
I get so hot in these vents. I think they have the heater on.
Oh, Jeremy, don't move. Oh, wait. Michael and Jeremy steal your podcast every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts and stuff.
We're gonna take your podcast and we're gonna do it
better,
faster,
stronger,
hornier.
Yes,
in an hour
or more. Sometimes.
Treasure.
I saw it first. Come to
I wouldn't go that way if I were you. There's a trap.
It's just a measly tripwire. What's the worst that could happen?
Apart from all of the arrows, nets, and poison darts, you're going to alert the bandits that we're here.
A couple of bandits. I think I can handle that.
Or we could just sneak through. The best cat burglars are the ones that don't get caught.
So you're just going to hop, skip, and jump over all of these traps?
Mm-hmm. Like this.
Show off.
Well, if you can do better.
Watch this.
Are you okay? You've got something in your chest. A lot of somethings.
Oh, this? There's nothing. It's just a flesh wound.
Well, you beat me. To the victor! Go the spoils. Sorry. I guess there was one more trap.
Sleeping gas. Is that the best thing?
Oh, what a shame. I guess I'll just have to leave you here to deal with those measly little bandits. I think I hear them coming. Sleep tight. Don't let the bandits bite.
Rogue! Here, kitty!
I wouldn't go that way if I were you. There's a trap. The best cat burglars are the ones that don't get caught. Like this.
It's a bit high now.
Like this.
Show off.
Dear Lady Eleanor, from the day that I first saw you, I knew I loved you. I was such a fool for not kissing you that day at the lake. I should have told you then how I felt. The truth is, you have my heart, Eleanor, and if you'll have me, I want nothing in return for it. Nothing but knowing you love me too. Yours truly, Wallace.
Wallace, have you heard the news? What is it, Alfred? Lady Eleanor is to be married to Lord Thomas in secret ceremony in 2 days.
What? To Lord Thomas?
It's been arranged by the king.
Alfred, we've got to stop it. I'm not going to miss this chance too. Come.
Right.
Hey, careful! We just dropped a huge load of seed over there.
He's in love with Lady Eleanor. He's going to confess his love before she marries.
Love?
And she's to marry Lord Thomas in less than 2 days at Wigmore Castle.
Well, come now, we know a shortcut. Follow us, let's go.
Halt! You can't cross any further.
This is the property line for the castle.
But, sir, he's in love with Lady Eleanor. We must stop the wedding.
I'm nothing without her, sir.
Lady Eleanor?
Yes, sir. Haven't you ever been in love, sir?
I have. What would you do to prove your love for her?
Anything, sir.
Would you kill this thief, then, that we've caught?
She stole bread from inside the castle walls.
We are gathered here today in secrecy.
Lady Eleanor! Wait! I need to speak with you. I came here to confess my love to you.
Who the hell is he?
You can't marry Lord Thomas, my lady. He's not the man for you. This is a marriage out of arrangement, not one out of love.
What is this fool talking about?
My father once told me that his biggest regret in life was not telling my mother that he loved her sooner. Please don't go, Lady Eleanor. I may not be able to give you all of the fancy things that Lord Thomas can. The carriage rides, the kingdoms, the jewelry.
Can we hurry things along, please? He's gonna do it. He's gonna fucking do it.
But what I can give you is my heart. Because I love you, Lady Eleanor. I've always loved you. I knew from the first moment that I saw you that I loved you. And there's nothing in this world that could take that from me.
All right.
Bloody hell!
Who the hell was he?
I honestly don't know.
I think he's dead.
That wasn't worth a 2-day run.
Right. Let's finish the ceremony.
Anyone fancy a cup of tea?
Tea.
Right.
All right.
Well, that wasn't worth it. It's lying between two hearts.
Hey, everybody. everybody, we are back, and I hope you have stuck with us because Doc is going to give us a little magical Q&A. We're going to visit the doctor's office. So, Doc, what do you have lined up for us? Oh, wait, and
all right,
after Doc talks, then we're going to get back to our topic of running D&D for family and kids.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So while we're talking about running D&D for family and kids, I keep talking about Castle Sucre, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's this Candyland adventure where it starts off where you go through this mystical forest of candy, and there's a candy cane forest, and they're very brittle. They can fall apart and cut you up and all this. And then I thought, candy and children, and then I think the Tooth Fairy, Faye. What do you guys know about the Tooth Fairy?
Right.
Doing a magical Q&A today, that's going to be our topic. So I like to lead off with what you guys know or believe you know about the Tooth Fairy.
I'm remarkably ignorant about the Tooth Fairy, I must admit.
Okay.
Wait,
okay.
like you have no idea
Russell, you have no children?
I have no
children. So Russell has no children. So, but as a child, that's what I was gonna say. As a child, was there any kind of Tooth Fairy? Or
okay. So I mean, you'd leave like some money under your pillow,
right? When you lose,
you would leave a tooth under the pillow, and you'd get in the morning.
Even when you didn't live in the U.S.
Absolutely. I mean, in New Zealand, growing up in New Zealand.
Okay, growing up in New Zealand. Okay, New Zealand. That's a New Zealand thing. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's all. That's your extent. That's your extent of Tooth Fairy. That's it.
I don't really have much. I mean, so my parents were the kind of parents where when I figured it out very young, all the things, I'm not going to say all the things in case we have kids watching, but certain things weren't real. And when I kind of figured that out, instead of trying to keep the charade going as long as they could, I was like 5 or 6, and they just said, well, do you want to know the truth? And I said, yeah. And so they told me the truth, and the magic was over. So I had very little experience with it as a kid as well. I know what it is, or at least my idea is you lose a tooth, you put it under the pillow, and then you get money under your pillow from the tooth fairy.
And did you did it with your own kids? You did it with your own kids?
I did. I did. But, inflation sucks because all the kids nowadays are getting like $20 for a freaking tooth. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Well, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that too a little bit.
That's New Zealand money. New Zealand money. That's like
Monopoly money.
Right.
I think it becomes very pressure based too for parents nowadays to keep up with your kid lost a tooth. It's under the pillow. You got to get in the room. You got to get the pillow. You got to get under the pillow. You got to get the money. You got to get the
Yeah.
All right.
You're a parent. Get over it.
All right. So there is a twofold thing here. My fantasy book that I wrote is actually called Magical Q&A, The Tooth Fairy and the Giant, and explores a whole nother reason behind the Tooth Fairy. Right. But not to go into that too far, there are 3 central mythical figures, right, in the Western world. You got Father Christmas or Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, and then, of course, the Tooth Fairy is huge.
Yeah.
Now, Tooth Fairy goes back to pagan times, which is really, really interesting. You go all the way back to Mesopotamia and, the cradle of life. And what they used to do with teeth was they would go out somewhere and they would throw them up in the air as an offering to the gods. So you take the tooth and just launch it, and you did not want to find your tooth.
Okay.
It had to be found. You wanted it taken by an entity.
Right.
So I could see kids just like keep throwing their teeth till they're like, really, really gone. And then really that ancient tradition sticks with India, China, Japan, and Korea today.
Really?
Tossing up in the air.
And not tossing like out like a baseball away. Instead, they're trying to toss it up. Because I feel like if you don't want to find it, away is better.
And then there's different things. Then they start talking about if it's from the upper jaw, it's thrown to the ground. Kids yell out wishes while the teeth are flying in the air. So people are hearing this wish during the teeth. South Africa, they have the same basic idea of a tooth fairy, but instead of placing the tooth under the pillow, you put them in slippers.
Right.
So
That
instead
you
of a pillow,
wear,
it's
or like slippers that you're not wearing?
yeah, your slippers would be off at night. Right.
Oh,
You
okay,
take
okay,
your slippers
okay,
off at
okay.
night. So then you put your teeth in your night slippers in South Africa.
Okay.
In Spanish speaking countries, no tooth fairy, according to this article. It's a
Interesting.
mouth called Perez. Okay.
Interesting.
And then really that the European really goes to France. When I was doing my research, it goes into a 7th century tale called Les Bons Petits. I know I don't say any of my French right. Les
It
Bons
sounded good. I wouldn't have known any difference.
Les Bons Petits Souris.
Uh-huh.
Souris. And it's,
Sounds right.
it's the good little mouse.
But
Okay.
And they both
silent T at the end.
okay. I always do the silent stuff wrong. And then it works pretty much the same way. They would come and get the teeth from under the pillow. And then there was all different things hundreds of years ago, looking at different things that people did in America. People were burying teeth, placing teeth in mouth holes, throwing teeth between the legs. People like to throw teeth into fires.
Wow.
Okay.
And they felt like they would get augury from them.
I was
They
going
would
to say
get,
that was the first thing I thought of, was like, I'm trying to curate this kind of a witch doctor kind of a
Right.
character, and throwing teeth in a fire sounds like something I would do.
Now something
They'd crack and break and explode.
Right.
Didn't they?
Now, another one that became popular in America for a while, we were always talking about that death belief in America when, crystal balls and Ouijas and all that stuff. People started hiding them in walls and stuff. So if there was a hole in your house, you would put everyone's teeth in the hole in the house.
That would be kind of creepy if you were remodeling and you found teeth in your
Open up.
walls.
Actually, this reminds me of something. It's a little bit off topic, but I just have to ask.
No, it's okay.
Have you seen the film Existenz by David Crow?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Do you remember the gun?
Yes. Oh, the gun too. There is something with teeth removed. Doesn't he have to
Well, there was. Yeah, he does. I think that's possibly in it too. But
that was where I went first.
Okay. Well, there's a gun that's made out of human cartilage that cannot be detected by metal detectors, and it fires human teeth.
Yeah, fires human teeth. Yes, so
That's
that way it
pretty
can't
cool.
be detected.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty gritty though. It's Cronenberg.
Yeah. And Magical Q&A, the Tooth Fairy and the Giant, they do pick up a flesh-like device similar to the gun, but it's more an augury reader.
Sorry, did you say flesh-like or fleshlight?
Like.
I heard fleshlight too, but I just
It's actually called the Moore Clock.
Ooh.
In honor of Michael Moorcock.
Wow.
Right, the author of the Elric novels. But anyway, I go aside myself.
Yeah.
But anyway, where did the Tooth Fairy come from? So let's talk about that now, because now you've heard all these crazy things going on with teeth around the world.
Right.
Where did the actual Tooth Fairy come from? This is coming after World War II. Okay.
Really?
After that era. Yeah. Listen to this.
I thought it would have gone further back.
No, parents had extra money to spend.
Okay.
The generation before that was not putting money under pillow for kids' teeth.
Right.
Yeah.
They put lard on the pillow.
Right. So at that time, same era, Walt Disney's animated fairies hit the movie screens.
Like fairy
Okay.
godmothers and all that.
Right. And
Yeah.
then the pumpkin gets turned into a coach. Sleeping Beauty tops the movie franchise.
So it's a pop culture thing, not a pagan thing.
Yeah. Pop culture.
I
the
thought
Tooth
it would
Fairy
be
becomes a
pagan
pop.
thing too.
It does explain. It explains why I don't know about it.
Well, then what actually happened to it is the Dental Association bought into it. And then in the 70s, they had the 4 out of 5 dentist survey recommend chewing gum.
Right.
That kind of thing started happening.
Coca-Cola and Christmas.
Right. So then, yeah, exactly. Coca-Cola and Christmas, Tooth Fairy and dentists
Right.
went hand in hand. because why shouldn't we give everybody candy on Halloween, rot their teeth, keep going? Anyway, I digress. Now, according to this, you just said $20. I don't. Let's see. This is probably a very old article.
I never did $20, but I remember. I want to say it was with my youngest when he was losing his teeth, that all his friends, I remember him coming home and telling me that his friend lost a tooth and he got $20. And he was like, well, how come I only got $1? And at the time,
Right,
I'm like, that's more than I got, you know?
Right.
This says that Western states were getting an average of $4.85, while Northeastern states were getting $4.35. Children can expect to see at least $4.12. Midwestern states only saw about $3.44 per tooth. These references for this article go back as far as 2016.
Well, I mean, I am
So
in
I don't
California,
know
so $20 is just, it makes sense for the ridiculousness that happens.
Now I'm going to say in my house,
Can't buy anything for less than $20.
in my house, we actually used coins were part of the deal, and we tried to get like Sacagawea and 50-cent coins, so they were even more like collectible coins.
Right.
They had more power that way. But if you want to find out how it really happens, you got to read, the tale of the Tooth Fairy and the Giant. That's the true magical Q&A. But that's magical Q&A tonight. The Tooth Fairy and not a cult.
Wow.
Right.
Pop culture.
So here's what I'm imagining now for like putting into a game is that there is a real magical whatever tooth fairy or something that's taking teeth and leaving something behind, and then because of that people have adopted it as a fun good thing, but really it's a bad thing. I think whoever's collecting your teeth, like they can scry on you whenever they want. Like they can do things to you. They have power over you.
Right. I could smash those teeth.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great idea. That's so awesome.
Well, it's how sympathetic magic works, isn't it? You get some piece of somebody's body, their hair or their teeth or something.
Yeah, we talk about the voodoo. We've talked about that magical Q&A before. Yeah. And then the jars, you would put people's teeth in those possession jars.
Oh,
do we have time to go back for a quick revisit? We were going to revisit our topic anyway, weren't we?
Oh yes, we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I just brought up the teeth because I mean I keep talking about Castle Sucre
and candy.
And candy, but also if part of our Discord, if you get in our chat for the game, I've listed a whole bunch of kid-friendly adventures in there. I'm not going to promote all these authors right here directly. I'm going to promote our Discord. Find us on Discord.
And then you can find them there.
Yeah, you can find them there. Exactly.
All right.
Anything else on Tooth Fairy for anybody?
Well, I guess the only thing I can add really is that I happen to know that the Hebrew letter for T is Teth, which means serpent, and in the tree of life is associated with teeth.
Interesting.
And so spirit actually is tooth. Tooth is spirit.
Huh.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Yeah, it just really shocked me that it didn't go back further than commercialism, basically.
Right.
Well, even that whole, I don't remember when the whole fairy photograph thing went down in England with those girls.
1910.
So imagine those pictures are getting recirculated in 1930, 1940 as well.
Yeah.
Starts playing, it's crossing into reality.
Yeah.
The context of everything.
The zeitgeist.
But I do like the idea of some kind of fairy taking teeth. The other thing I think about is with the money situation, what players can do with their money.
Right.
Where teeth have value.
Yeah.
Dragons' teeth have lots of value.
Yeah, I mean, one of my players has got a couple of dragon's teeth from a number of different dragons now that they've actually killed, and he's been carving them to give to different players and NPCs. So they're pretty cool.
Actually, going back
Monster
to our
teeth.
currencies episode, we talked about that teeth could be used as kind of a currency.
Right.
I don't know if you were there for that episode, Doc, but yeah, that was a really fun episode. We might have to play that one again during the holidays.
I think I was listening to you guys
Yeah.
talk about it. That's where it came from.
Yeah, how cool. All right, so let's dive back into our topic. We left off where we were kind of talking about like how to manage pacing, and I mentioned timestamps, and yeah, so I kind of wanted to mention one other thing as far as leading people in to a one shot. Now, especially family and folks that have no concept, right? If you know you're going to be doing this ahead, like you're not already sitting around for Thanksgiving and going, you know what, we should do a one shot. Like if you have time to prepare, folks who have no concept of what this is. I mentioned this in one of our other episodes recently, Doc, but I've pointed people to a few key moments on Critical Role or
Yeah, we were talking
some
about that.
other D&D live play show where I can point and say, oh, okay, well, if you're interested in playing a rogue, here's a few key moments of somebody playing a rogue to give you an idea. If you're interested in playing this, then here, I'll show you what it's like to be, play a wizard, just so that they can kind of see that for some reason that really helps them grasp that they can do anything. Like
I've got 400 odd games on my Rollstream YouTube account. If you want to go there and look at,
I can start pointing towards that.
Start pointing to the Veingate Chronicles. Or
Yeah.
The Burning.
Yeah. So just wanted to kind of put that tip out there. I know some folks learn best by kind of like watching that first and kind of absorbing it indirectly before actually playing. Or in some cases, I know it helps people like I have an anxious player. So I'll point to certain things because it kind of reduces the anxiety if they can see it and understand
somebody else
how it
walk through it.
unfolds. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to talk about as far as role playing with kids and potentially family, but has admittedly not done as much of that. The idea that, especially with kids, oftentimes you've got a quest giver or somebody who's got to tell the kids what to do, right? It's like, here's the quest, go do the thing. That character usually has more status than the kids' characters do. Right. So I think it's important, and this is honestly, I think it's true for any group, but especially poignant for children, is to make sure that they get a chance to role play with characters that have higher status than them, and then get to role play with characters that have lower status than them.
Yeah.
They get a lot of fun out of that, and they get to see it both ways, and you get to play both characters, and they get to see your range as a DM, so that you can be like, and then
yeah, no, that's actually a really great
example.
point. Yeah, because with kids, the dynamic is always that someone's kind of like, you need to do this and you do this and it is, and I think the fact that they give them a chance to say, you need to do this, like I think that's fantasy fulfillment, right?
Right, exactly. That's right, exactly. It's a power fantasy, actually.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing in the role play for Castle Sucre. The father wizard is missing. So, if you have kids role playing the scenario, they arrive and they meet the sister first, and then there's a brother, and the brother has let some kind of magical candy creature loose, and they give you all these key points to act out the two siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is like what you're talking about here. It's this part where there's a lot of role playing, and they can kind of feel out which way they want to go, and it can go either way still. It's still not railroady, and there's enough information there that the kids can sort of still have their own interactions, and you have sort of just like the answer sheets to play for them. So it's really, really good. It's set up for that very, very well.
Right. I mean, another thing that you can do, in fact, you guys know Avery from the stream.
I'm just going to say hi, Avery, now, because Avery's probably going to be in the chat.
Probably Christina, probably any number of people. But yeah, he did a favor for me. He made a cheat sheet for one of my other players, Lissa, to help, because she's brand new. She has hardly played D&D before at all. In fact, she never played before until me. And she's up to about her 5th game now. And he gave her a cheat sheet that explains everything from actions and bonus actions and reactions and movement and all the things you need to know in combat, which I haven't seen it in action yet, but I suspect it's going to make a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I use one that was passing around on Facebook for a while. It's like sort of handwritten. Someone like the nice cursive version,
right?
And then it has done in a flow chart so they can see how to pick each one. And I definitely use that with all my kids.
So
It's
what we
really
haven't
great tool.
what we haven't talked about is content and appropriateness of content.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something we're planning to talk about.
It is.
Yeah, no,
I kind of
absolutely.
saved it, but we can hit that. And then I've just been kind of going through the list and making sure we're hitting any points or not missing any points. So if we want to talk about that now, I definitely have ideas.
And again, I'll open it up with Castle Sucre. That Candyland theme is really easy for kids to start out in. You don't really have any real monsters. I think there's a gummy bear. There's a gummy worm. And then they're all statted like D&D monsters, pretty easy to figure out. And then, spoiler alert, the BBEG is Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Right.
Which to me, that was kind of a letdown because that's Ghostbusters.
Right.
Right. So I don't know if you want to, homebrew your own candy monster at the end of that. Easy, very, very easy. I definitely stay away from body horror.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say, I also, depending on the age group, death isn't usually even on the table because unconsciousness for a one shot is enough when they're taken out for the rest of the battle or something. Like they don't need to be dead.
Right.
See, I don't know about that because I kind of feel like there could be that zombie, they're killing all these undead creatures.
Right. But depending on the age group, right? Are you concerned? Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, definitely on the age group there.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so for me personally, I typically don't allow players younger than 10. And that's partly because I have to be able to plan a game that's for a range of people,
Right. Well, professional DM, yeah.
Yeah, so it can't really be, it's not really a game for 8-year-olds. Yes, you get 8-year-olds that can play D&D, but I wouldn't necessarily... I think if you were going to run a game for 8-year-olds, you'd have to tailor it to them really specifically.
Right.
Whereas you can tailor a game for 10 to 16 without having to fuck with it too much,
Right.
So let me probe your brain. Besides Candyland, what's another trope you think you could throw out there for a kid besides Candyland? The one I always think of is the Island of the Lost.
Right.
You can get a balloon ride. You end up on another island, and now there's dinosaurs, and you got the Greek monsters. You could throw that at them. Like, is there a trope you could say, damn, this is going to work with kids? Bam, I got it.
Well, I thought the Winter Queen thing was quite good. It's straight out of Narnia, basically.
Okay.
Right.
So
That,
the winter
that kind of worked. And a lot of Fae stuff tends to work for kids. They're not restrained to, like with adult characters, and they're playing in Vaingate City, and there's the city guard and the city watch and these different factions, and there's lots of politics and stuff. And they don't want to get involved in that. It's too complicated.
Right.
So, setting them up with a bunch of woodland animal characters and putting them into a magical, mystical, mysterious adventure with a bit of plane shifting, they like that.
Okay, now I'm gonna spoil the land. Spoilers.
Okay.
I don't think any of my Girl Scouts are watching. I don't think any of my Chronic folk are watching, hopefully. So the BBEG is Baba Yaga. We've been talking about Snuffles, right? We talked about Snuffles. They were putting magic stuff. So Baba Yaga is tapping in that magic, right? But I don't tell the kids that Baba Yaga is behind the scenes, right? There's no need to. They're nowhere near any of that whatsoever. So it's like a non-mute point to introduce. So Russ, I'm glad you said that.
I'm not
even
sure
though I haven't.
Okay.
No, you had mentioned about the machinations of everything going on.
Right,
and that's what it made me think. Yeah, with kids, you can't include every detail. I don't need to tell them.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are these mysterious, that's where the mystery is for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amber.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just, I come at it from a very different angle where it goes back to the fact that I'm usually playing with younger kids or adults. It's not really kind of in the in-between.
Middle,
And so when it comes to the younger kids, I go straight to, what cartoons are you watching? Pokemon? All right, this is a Pokemon adventure. We're monster hunting.
Right.
Are you watching Harry Potter? Okay, well then we're going to be in a magical castle and you've all got magic wands and all that stuff. So I really take
You
inspiration
use
from whatever they're
lore
watching.
right.
Right.
Using stuff they know.
Yeah, because that makes it very easy for them to understand. It makes it very easy for me to plan an adventure because I know all that, I know Harry Potter, I know Pokemon, So
So can you give us, what other ones have you hit? What other ones? It sounds like you've hit a couple.
Are
there some others you've hit?
Lego. I mentioned Lego earlier because my oldest did a lot of the where they were making Lego video games about everything. It was like Lego Indiana Jones, Lego Star Wars, Lego this. And so Lego and then he had Legos. So it made it really easy to be like, oh, here's a board, here's your little mini. We're doing a Lego adventure, which really was just like, collect the gems or whatever, or something to that effect. To open this door, you need 20 of these gems. Go find this. So
Pirate trope would be nice.
Yeah.
Pirates, very easy to pull off.
Yeah.
Right?
So any stories that kids read, any media that they're taking in, I think is just you've already got a story built in there. You already have a bad guy. There's, NPCs you could throw in there that they would recognize. Like it just makes it
any
so
others?
easy.
I'm trying to tap any ones you've
I haven't actually done any, but boy, I could just come up with a bunch of them on the spot, I'm sure. So
I do have an admission to make though.
What's that?
My admission is that I honestly very rarely actually bother to tailor it specifically to the kids.
Yeah.
I honestly just run games that I think I would like, and they like them. I mean, the kids like all that stuff. I dumb it down a little bit. I mean, dumb it down is not a really great phrase, but
it's like I was just saying about not saying who's operating everything behind the scenes.
Right.
There's just this forest, and I keep the fantasy up, the high fantasy up for them.
Right.
And
right, exactly. So you can just run it in your own normal campaign world if you want to, and most of the time they don't do anything that's world breaking that requires retrofitting or retconning or any of that stuff. So I mean, they like dark, scary shit. Kids love that. They actually love it.
I was going to say, I actually do have a few kids. I haven't really had to worry about like death or even like, there's blood all around and there's I don't have to worry about dead bodies being in the dungeon. They're okay with dead bodies, Right. I haven't had to worry about that too much, but I do, if it's a new kid or, like, I don't know you very well yet, I'll err on the side of caution.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Now another thing. Go ahead, Russell.
I was going to say, how do you figure out whether they've got any triggers or anything like that? Do you concern yourself with it, and in what way?
I actually don't concern myself. I concern myself with it in the sense that anything that I think could be potentially triggering, I just leave it out. Especially for like a first session. That usually in that session, I can usually pick up on their vibe. Because if the monster shows up and they're like hacking and slashing away, then I'm like, oh, you're okay with violence. It's okay. So I can kind of pick up on that with one session.
And I think if you're using, I think she's using a trope. You know where you're going to. You know that kid's how far he's going. Go ahead, Russell.
Do you have any issues with behavior with children when you're running games?
Well, so when I did the one game where it was the 2 8-year-olds and the 6-year-old, right? One of the boys and the 6-year-old, their brother and sister. And they're around each other constantly. Like they hardly ever, at that time they were homeschooled, so they hardly ever got away from each other. So there was a lot of like, well, you can't do that. Yeah, I can. Like that kind of stuff. And it was like, guys, nope. Like, you can do this. You can't do this because I said so. Like, you don't argue. I'm gonna argue for you.
Right.
but really nothing more than that.
Right. I think the biggest thing is they talk over each other a lot, and then they go off into their own little worlds. If you give them too long to sit by themselves, they start talking to each other in little cliques.
Yeah.
And to be most of the time, they're actually planning what they're going to do to you. So, they're vicious little bastards.
So basically what you're saying is if the kids take off and it looks like they're not paying attention because they're talking, they might be plotting.
They're planning. They're plotting against you. It's almost...
I've often found playing with kids, usually if just something like, I'll wait is enough. I think most of them get the idea that you're the DM and you control the game and they're paying attention to you. I find adults are far more the ones
Yes.
to have a sidebar and not be paying attention and come back to the game and go, "What's going on? I missed it."
Well, to be fair, I still use my bell on adults.
Okay.
Okay. It still works, and the timer works on adults for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to go back to, we had mentioned before about if you're running for kids or something, that maybe one of them already has a little bit of experience, and it kind of helps because then they're either answering questions or something. Have you ever purposefully put in a ringer to help? Like, I know I'm going to be running for these 10 kids and I got, or whatever, 10's too many, but I'm going to have these kids and I have this other kid about their age who knows what they're doing. Have you purposely put in a ringer?
With the kids games, I have not actually had a chance to do that, but I've certainly done that with the adults.
Yeah.
I've certainly
I'm gonna stop you, Amber.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna ask you not to use the term ringer.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That is cooperative learning at its best. You will find that children learn much, much faster from their peers than they do from the teacher in the room.
Okay.
It's scientifically proven. So if you are not using a mentor player situation with your kids, you have to be. And I think that was key for the Girl Scouts, was my daughter having played with the old Gromnards for a couple months and then coming in to play with her friends and sort of being the caller, the leader, keeping things sort of in order. It was key, man. It was essential.
Yeah.
And those other girls picked up on stuff even faster. And then what else happened was, and this is the big one, they're going to discuss the game outside of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they get the ownership. We talk about this in education all the time. And if you get to Russell's role stream, I talk about the 5 C's in education, and how they're taking away the R's. We talk about collaboration, creativity, and these are the things that are really, really super important for these kids for life. I mean, I'm not even just talking about school. They're going to be born leaders if you're teaching these kids now how to run and be a lead player. They're already learning those skills. And we have to see it that way. We can't call them ringers anymore.
Okay.
They're experienced young players.
Oddly, I'm not even familiar with the term ringer.
Oh, really? Okay. See, and I've only ever heard of it referred to as a ringer. So that's why I was like, oh, what term am I supposed to use?
I really don't like that Dungeons & Dragons gets a lot of terms associated with it that I don't like. One shot is one of the worst terms. And I've said this on the show a million times. I hate that term, by the way, because it crosses into the XXX world. So it really bothers me that it's very acceptable, but adults love toilet humor to go along with their Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And this is another thing I warn: if you're going to play with your family, some adult is going to say something, and then if you got the preteen there who's in middle school, you're going to have a fart joke or an ass joke.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, embrace it. It's part of D&D.
Right.
But let's not call them ringers. A ringer would be someone you would bring on to a basketball team or a sports team to beat another team.
Yeah.
Without letting that team know that that person really never played on your team ever before.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was being done in professional sports for a while.
I hate the phrase homebrew. Makes me think.
Yes.
Makes me think of breweries and smelling hops and stuff, which I'm sure lots of people like, but it's not my process for creating material.
I agree. There's tons of the terms that I feel
like. This is
so
interesting. I mean, I have never really, as a writer, I have never really put that kind of topic. I guess this is an interesting topic. I'm gonna have to really kind of reflect on this, because aside from the joke, I have an inside joke with some friends that, like, I really hate the word salami just because it sounds weird, but there's no other important reason other than that. Like, I have never had a word or phrasing of something where I'm like, ooh, I really don't like how they use that. But now I have to think about it, because maybe I do.
I don't like BBEG. BBEG came from video games, not from not from role playing.
Yeah, same as like DPS.
Boss battle.
Right, boss battles. Right, exactly. Big bad. Yeah, exactly. No, you're totally right. There's so much material that has come back in the backwash from video games that has been re-encapsulated into the system. I mean, even fifth edition has sucked into it somewhat. You know, there's a lot of video game material there.
Yeah,
but we digress, Russell. But we digress.
I was gonna say I do think this does tie back to you were talking about like weren't you talking about like do you watch what content you put in and like triggers or things like that? How do you know? And this goes exactly straight back to that. Like I had no idea that was a word that would be bothersome. And so here we are. And so if you encounter this in your game, try to find a way to quickly, rename it, pivot, or I don't know. How would you?
Well, I think the most important thing is that everybody is conscious of it.
Yeah.
Right. Just have the conversation. That's I mean, and then it's in their hands. They have to take some responsibility too.
Yeah. Interesting.
Now, the other thing you talked about for kids was puzzles.
Yes.
And do you include puzzles for kids? Now, we always talk about puzzles being, you guys have had puzzle episodes. And what do you guys talk about it? Let's hear.
Puzzles. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I did a puzzle 2 weeks ago with these kids where they had to figure out the elements and the seasons connected to these 4 runes in order to unlock a door, basically, and so it was pretty straightforward. They just had to sort of think about it and figure out which element would go with which season. But it still took them 15 minutes because there was 8 of them. So, and that was
there frustration though? Was there frustration among them? Like, we can't figure this out.
I don't know. I went outside.
No, you really let them brainstorm it.
Yeah, I let them brainstorm.
Brainstorm time.
That to me personally, that's the best part of DMing, when you can walk away from the table. You come back and I mean, obviously role playing is more fun than that, but it's still that's a sign you're doing something right because you are able to walk away from the table. And there
again, that's when you're an exemplary teacher, when you can walk away and the kids are all still engaged and they're asking questions of each other without you even being involved. Absolutely.
Somebody knows enough between them that they can figure it out.
See, I have to, when it comes to, one-shot adventures or anything like that, I really have to tailor down or simplify puzzles because of the time crunch. And puzzles seem to be the thing that really stretches the game out because
it's unpredictable.
It is very unpredictable, and you don't want to just give it to them if they can't figure it out. So there's this awkward, like you kind of have to wait for them to figure it out. I don't know. I usually don't do a lot of puzzles for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm running a campaign with these kids, so it's not so much of a one-shot kind of scenario, but there are 2-hour sessions, so they have to be kind of self-contained, but at the same time, there is continuity. I found that with the puzzle, they did figure some of it out, but I let them make checks to get clues, and that helped them considerably. So,
yeah.
And then what I do in some cases, if, you're saying, what if they can't get it? Then I just make it who rolls the highest check, and the person gets the 18. I go, you figure it out. And they're like, I did.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that they didn't figure it out. They're just like, oh, I got the highest roll. Yay.
Another tactic is to have questions in your puzzle that are so vague that you could basically say yes or no to just about any answer.
Yeah, whatever answer sounds like a good answer, you're like, oh yes, that's the one. You figured it out.
Well, and I like Russell's.
That's a great tip.
I like Russell's idea too of simple things like 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Very, very simple things. But I do want to reflect back on this because I think again it is motivational for kids. Growing up playing D&D, S2 had the riddle where you walk in and you had to, there were numbers and you had to pick which number didn't belong. What was it? 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Which number doesn't belong and why? And no matter how hard this puzzle is, and I was a math teacher for years, I use this puzzle always. And I told my students, you're adventurers, you're in pyramid, the Sphinx comes out, he's going to eat you if you don't know the answer to this. They loved the fact that it was get the answer or die.
Yeah.
And I had a class of like 28 kids, and we'd go, okay, who's going to go first to answer the Sphinx? And yep, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead. And we keep going down. And then finally, 28 kids, someone finally would pick the right number because 13 got picked, whatever.
Right.
It didn't matter that they didn't know the logic of the answer or whatever. So if there's some way you can, it's 9, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, it's 9 because it's
Yeah.
odd and it is composite.
Yeah, it's
The other odd
divisible
number.
is what I was thinking. Yeah.
It's divisible. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and being a math teacher was always a great math lesson. And then kids always walked away knowing prime and composite. We hadn't even talked about math for a half hour.
Yeah.
It was kids talking about the Sphinx and getting eaten. But then after I said, well, 9's, it's not prime, it's composite. And I introduced the concept, and it was like anchored in their brains. It was more about the adventure than about the math. And that's the thing I want to say to DMs. When you're doing this kind of stuff, you're really getting in their brain. So give them that answer and just let someone say, you got it by rolling the die. And
well,
they learned something.
On that note, I feel like the takeaway, not the takeaway, but a takeaway from what you said is you could, if you're going to do this for like your family's kids, you can really seed in some morals or some education in there, like Greek mythology, like make the whole thing about like you could really throw in a bunch of learning in there that they don't even realize they're learning.
If you can get hold of their teachers' learning objectives somehow, you could go through that and design your adventure around it. And I don't think anyone has really done this yet. Maybe privately, like maybe yourself, Doc, but I mean, I haven't had a chance to do it yet. It's something I've wanted to do. And it's something I think that there's probably a market for, because
educational one-shots.
Or
educational role-playing.
Yeah. Well, no, and I'm going to tell you, in my research, the actual gentleman who wrote Castle Sucre, he wrote a whole series of dungeons for kids, led me to a publisher. I believe that writer was retained by Wizards.
Oh, really?
And there are now a set of books out by Wizards that are introductory beginner modules for kids, which I believe this author is now their consultant. And this person started as just writing this free Castle Sucre. I'm going to put it out on the internet. So you can see how these things evolved. And this person is now a published author with Wizards writing adventures for kids.
My family, my mum is a teacher. My dad is a teacher. My auntie is a teacher. My uncles are teachers. My grandfather and grandmother were both teachers. I swore I'd never be a teacher, but I did end up teaching in China for 3 years. But the point really is that there's a lot of education going on in the background in my life, like educators, not necessarily me being educated, but that's a different story. And so, this idea that we could be seeding role playing in education would totally work. I think everybody kind of knows that. We can all see it. It's just that the system itself is like, oh no, it's Dungeons and Dragons. It's the satanic panic and all of that nonsense.
Well, big business is looking for their companies to start doing it. They're looking for their business people to start learning how to role play and be creative thinkers and collaborate. And
well, if you find any of those businesses, do send them my way.
No, I will. I totally will.
Well, and
but
also
family events. It's a great idea to pull that puzzle or trap for kids, but give it to them, give them the answer, and let it move forward in the story, like we've been talking about. Don't let it slow down your presentation for a one shot.
Right. Well, and so, talking about seeding in education in there, we've talked about in the past so many times about how D&D is very helpful for like your social learning
social skills.
Thank you. I was losing the words.
Social emotional background.
And especially when there's kids and you have, one of them saying, oh, you can't do that. And the other one, well, that's a definite teaching moment right there of, patience and the yes and moments, and like feeding into creativity and helping a child with confidence to like let them say what they want to do, even if you think that it's a bad idea. Let them do it and find out that it's a bad idea or a good idea. You don't know. Like, let them try. So I think those are all very important lessons that can definitely be part of the experience.
And as a teacher and a parent, and playing and DMing for my own child, it actually helps you become a better parent for helping them. Like you learn things, how to help them with homework. If you're not a teacher, right?
Yeah.
If you're not a teacher and you're DMing for your kids, you're kind
You
of
are now.
Yeah.
You're kind of mad. You might as well.
Yeah, right.
There was a huge uptake of homeschooling moms starting to play D&D during COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can see it, the market jump that homeschool moms realized, wow, I'm doing math, I'm doing this, I'm doing
funny. When I was a kid, I remember my parents picking up my D&D books because I had all of the first edition D&D books, DM's Guide, Player's Handbook, and I had dozens of the hardcovers. And they were like, how can you read this stuff? They look like textbooks from school.
Yeah.
Because of all the tables and, the gray, the multi-gray panel tables,
But they were books that got used more than your textbooks.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
certainly in my case.
Right. That's
I mean, there's really a little bit of everything in there. Yeah. Cause you've got the math, and then we've got social skills and then also like if you tap into, let's say, okay, for Thanksgiving or for the holidays, you've got your one shot. So you're not really spending a lot of time on maybe their character's backstory and why they're adventuring. But guess what? After the session, you can talk to your kids or talk to your family and go, so, and tap into their creativity and their narrative skills, and like, that's English. That's your writing skills or your, and let them think about, what does your character do now after this? It's that kind of stuff. You can really tap into all of it.
And
There's so much.
these are the same skills you use for reading.
Yeah.
You predict what's going to happen next, you imagine, and then that's why it's so important as an episode that we did one about families and kids, because I really think it's something that, like I said, it's not just opening the Monopoly board in front of everybody and playing.
Right.
It's a very different experience for everyone.
And like you mentioned before, there's always some kind of experience that people take away. I don't know anybody who goes, do you remember that Monopoly game that we had that like took 4 hours? Like, I don't know anybody who's maybe there's a couple people.
No, you don't remember which ones you remember?
Yeah.
When you got slaughtered.
Yeah.
Right. And you had to wait outside of the game for 8 hours. Remember that time I played and I didn't play?
Yeah.
Right.
So I think there's more opportunities for people to take away really interesting memories.
Yeah. Not to mention language skills, math skills, social skills, problem solving, teamwork.
Yeah. Teamwork is a good one. That's a big one. That's really hard, even for adults.
Yeah.
And spotlight, which is part of teamwork, let them have the spotlight for a minute and do their thing, whether or not you agree with it, because that's the hardest part, I think, for kids.
Yeah. And again, it works for kids and for adults, but you've got this. There's always a dynamic, or frequently there is a dynamic where you have one of the players who is just trying to tell everybody what to do.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
With kids, sometimes you just have to be like, okay, look, just settle down. Let Joe tell us what he wants to do.
Right.
Okay. I know that whatever you think he should do is probably going to work better mechanically, but what he wants to do is going to give him the most fun.
Right.
And then it's not hard for me to tweak that and make it work.
And on that note, I think this is what we really should be teaching kids, if we're teaching kids, is the leaning into the failure. Because that's the part that I find so hard for adults to grasp, is we're not trying to win the game. We're trying to have fun. And even if you fail at something, it's fun. So I think if we're going to be teaching kids anything, that's another one.
It is a great one. Actually.
Russell, you're talking about that without someone talking. Have you guys ever used I know like in the business meetings, you have to throw the ball to who can speak.
Right.
Have you ever done anything like that at your table?
Have I?
I haven't been in person.
Like I have.
be kind of cool to have like, the chalice.
Yeah,
Chalice gets
The
passed.
dice cup or something.
Yeah,
I
the
don't know.
microphone, whatever it is. That's a good point when you're doing a lot of
Talking stick also could work,
Yeah.
same thing basically.
I think Russell and I need to like sit down and be like teacher DM explosion.
Yeah.
And see what we come up with.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
So since we're talking about kids, I know we talked about like, keeping things simple and how to pace and all that stuff, but have you had people or kids who they just, especially during combat, I think is when I see it the most, where they just can't sit and watch and wait for their turn? They're antsy or they're high on sugar or whatever it is. Like they have to walk around and, oh, it's my turn now. And they haven't even really paid attention to what anybody else has done.
Yeah.
Have you come across that with kids, and do you manage that differently?
Yeah. I don't know who wants to go first here. Want to roll initiative?
You go first. I'm thinking about how to phrase.
I would say, yeah, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I think again, it's an instant shutdown and correction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't let it like go on forever. I remember playing with this one kid. I think he was 8 when we started, and he was a wizard and he wanted to do like a million things. And I was just like, you can only take one action.
Yeah.
You can only take, and he never got upset. So, I mean, it never went to the negative.
Yeah.
But he just kept, I'm going to do this and then this and this. You can't do all of those things right. And we've been talking about this the whole time. So I think I've been there, but
yeah,
I think that's really my own. I think that's my only example is this one boy. And it was just his super creativeness too. Like I appreciated, but we're not writing a story here. We're working together to play a game. So
right. If you need more time, Russell, I have an example.
Go on. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Let's hear yours. Go ahead.
The reason why I asked is because, I mean, you guys know, at least from my personal life, that my youngest son, he's just so busy with band stuff. He's always moving. When he was younger, he was, diagnosed with ADHD, but he seems to be managing everything quite well. But I do notice that when we are, especially in combat, he just can't sit at the table, and he'll get up and he'll pace and he'll go sit on the couch, and he'll go grab some food, and then finally when it's his turn, he'll come back, and he does sometimes miss what other people have done. But I've really had to kind of manage it with, like, I give him a heads up saying, okay, it's so-and-so's turn, and then it's your turn next, so at least he knows, like, I've got some time. I need to get back to the table. I need to pay attention to what's happening right before my turn. But I allow him to get up away from the table, because if he doesn't, he's sitting at the table just like drumming on the table and like he's just got this frantic energy that he needs to get out. So I let
perfectly
him.
fine. It's perfectly fine.
But I do make sure that, like, okay, if you're going to get away from the table, you're not on your phone, you're not talking to other people, you're not distracting or taking away from the game. You're still here. You're just up and moving around. But I just didn't know if anybody else had that kind of experience.
I'm
with
online,
one or more
so I also think playing Zoom and online kind of, even though kids can get distracted in their house.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, my story with this kid, he would get distracted because he's, looking at things and then coming up. That's what I was saying. Why he was overwhelming me with what actions he was going to take and not playing the game.
Right.
But your situation, I think kids have to be allowed to get up and move, or it is going to be more of a problem. And Russell, how do you do that with 8 kids? Do you let the kid?
Well,
in class, in school, we do. You can't force that kid to.
Yeah, I mean, definitely wouldn't force them to do anything. That's not really in my purview. But I think, speaking to the larger question, what do you do about keeping attention in these types of situations? And I think for me, I kind of resort to trying to engage them with role play. To bring them back to the table and back to their characters and back to the situation. Actually, out of game, I posted a link in the Zoom chat or the Discord chat, I think, of a video of I was DMing these 2 kids, and They were like, they went into this dungeon and they were like, yeah, we're going to kill everything. I'm going to smash down the doors. I'm going to do all these things, blah, blah, blah. They found a well. They went down the well. They found a bunch of gold and a magic dagger and they pulled it out of the well. And they're like, yay, look at us. We're so clever. And then this creature started wandering around, taunting them invisible. And then eventually they found out it was a boggle. And this boggle was like, give me my sword back. And they were like, oh my God, and they started thinking about it. And then they started feeling sorry for this character. And then they were giving him money back. And they, so it turned the whole thing on their heads because they went in there with this we're going to kill everything attitude. And within 5 minutes, they were giving money to monsters. And I enjoyed that because those two kids, certainly one of them in particular, were hard to handle.
Yeah.
And trying to keep their attention in any way except just straight up role playing didn't really work.
Yeah.
So engaging them in character makes a big difference.
That is a good point. I do like that. That's interesting.
It works for adults too, to be fair.
Yeah.
No, and that's the same with like hands-on.
Yeah.
When you take a kid outdoor education, take a kid out in the field, it's a much more real experience for them. So when someone like Russell is doing the dagger, you're not losing a kid's attention.
Right.
They love that sage on the stage.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you're good at it.
And they get to interact with that. I mean, as I said, the video is in the chat. If you want to cut a piece of it into the video, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I was going to say, I might do that.
And then cutting back to family, that's part of role playing. Used to back in the day play charades with your family. Give Dungeons and Dragons a try. It's just like charades. You get to role play, you get to act out a character. It's better, yeah. It could be a lot of fun. Give it a shot.
Give it a shot. We could have a D&D role playing system based on charades instead of dice.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
That would be fun. Kids, then the kids get the frantic energy out.
Right.
As DMs, we try to foster creativity, and if someone does something really creative, like we can give inspiration or do all those things. But I feel like it's even more important with kids because they're especially if they're newbies, because then it's like they don't know what they can and can't do. But if they do something that's very interesting or different or creative, then giving them that reward of or even just like an attaboy, attagirl, like, man, that, if you praise them in the middle of the session, like that was a really great idea, it really kind of gives them that confidence to try something even more risky or creative or different, so that positive feedback is I think even more important with kids,
right,
instead of any kind of negative, like, oh, you fell in the pit and you died or got hurt. Right. Because I don't know.
Now
some kids
thing,
might like that.
And Russell, I don't know how it plays at the D&D table. So I got to ask you this honestly. As a teacher, we try to eliminate sarcasm completely. As much as you think when you're a teacher using sarcasm, even with older students, I'm kind of being their buddy. They get it. It's cool. It can be taken the wrong way. So as a teacher, you try to shut that down and never do it.
Right.
Now, of course, you might be role-playing someone who's being sarcastic, but as the DM, have you found that you have to kind of hold back that sarcasm with kids a bit?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
You've got to do that. You've got to have that kids DM personality. I mean, it's the same personality that I guess I took to China to teach kids English, where you've got this form of yourself which you present, which is parent friendly. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about the parents, because they're the ones that are going to get you fired, not the kids.
Right. You know what? I even noticed Russell's eyebrow even changed when he did his parent.
Oh yeah,
his parent. Yeah, his whole voice, the whole thing just changed when he said, "Yes."
It's the actor in him.
Yeah, the whole thing changed. He's got the parent set
with his face.
I loved it.
Oh no,
but that was a good question. Thank you for it. Good answer, Russell. I like that.
Hopefully it was useful. I don't know. I mean, it was honest. There you go.
No, definitely. That's what we're about here. Honest answers. I liked it.
I mean, I don't think I handle every kids game as well as I could. I have to say, I've definitely made mistakes with kids and with adults with DMing. I mean, I still make fuckloads of mistakes. You're always going to make mistakes, but that's why it's great to watch a show like this, because you can benefit from our mistakes.
Exactly.
Hear about all the dumb shit that I've done and then not do it. Congratulations.
Or just learn how to hide it really well.
Right. It's
That's
like
really the key.
Well, and what I really like is I feel like we are 3 different flavors of a DM. And so there's something for everyone. Like if you don't agree with how I run things, you might like the way Russell does things and you can do it that way, or vice versa with, Doc. And I think I like it. It's the vanilla strawberry chocolate swirl.
That's what I said. I think that's where we're very Neapolitan.
Imagine if the 3 of us wrote an adventure. What the hell?
Why? Oh my gosh.
We're almost there.
What would it turn out to be? So I feel like unless you guys have any other like things that DMs should consider for doing this, I don't know that we want to do weekend games. We can. I have a story. It's not this weekend games, but it is a particular session that I ran for the 2 8-year-old boys by themselves that I thought would be really interesting and fit in really well here.
No, tell us.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So the same 2 8-year-old boys, right? They've basically grown up together, so they're practically family. One of them's my son. And at the time he said, well, and he thought it was such an original concept. He wanted to be a barbarian. And he was so proud of himself that was so original. And I was like, it sure is. How are you going to be a barbarian? Tell me about this. And he was like a Goliath with like an axe that was a guitar and all, I just so original.
Never heard of this before.
But then what shocked me was the other 8-year-old. So his name's Jimmy. Now, if you knew him in person, he is the most he's very reserved. He's the kid. We are the only people outside of his immediate family that has seen his true self. Other than that, he is a very reserved, quiet. You will never know the real Jimmy unless you get that close to him. And that's really hard. So I was shocked when he came to me with this idea that he wanted to be a sentient toaster, is what he called it. He wanted to play. Yeah, trust me. He wanted to play a Warforged. I keep
thinking Red Dwarf. As soon as that, I think of Red Dwarf.
He wanted to play a Warforged, and he said, "But I want to be a Warforged that's has ties with a bakery, and I want to have these 2 toaster slots in my chest, and my weapons are like burnt toast, and I want to do fire damage." And then he had in the middle of the session, he wanted to find an artificer or some kind of mechanic to help change his arm into a cannon where he could shoot baguettes out of the cannon, and just the most creative stuff I have never imagined out of this kid.
We are definitely 3 different flavors. You went for this too, didn't you?
Oh, I did. I said yes.
The toaster.
I totally said yes. And I was again, first one's free. So I'm like, let's do this, kid. You want to be a sentient toaster that can shoot baguettes with fire damage? Sure.
So what would you have said, Doc? I'm curious. If a kid came to you and asked you if they could play a sentient toaster, what would you say?
Oh,
He's still thinking about it.
I wouldn't. I don't think I would have had the door that far open.
Right.
My foot would have already had the door at fighter, magic user, rogue, priest. Pick one of them. Yeah, no. I'd say I don't understand a sentient toaster in a fantasy setting.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I would do.
Not in my fantasy setting.
Yeah, I'm curious now. This is great. Just hear the 3 different swirls of how this would play out.
So go on. Ask me if you can play a sentient toaster.
Can I play a sentient toaster?
Can I play the sentient toaster?
No.
Just
that's how
sarcasm. That's sarcasm. Right?
Hey, you're right.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, I'm
so
sorry.
Russell uses sarcasm to shut down the. Yeah, no, I wouldn't use sarcasm, but I would just be like, no, I don't think that's gonna work.
I mean, for a one shot, I was granted, he did carry it over into another adventure because he just loved it so much. But
right,
it was
now if we're playing Gamma World. Yeah. he might be able to play a sentient toaster.
Yeah.
If we're playing Traveler, he might be able to play not Dungeons and Dragons.
And he named his character Jimmy John Sandwiches. I don't know if you guys have Jimmy Johns, but we have Jimmy Johns out here. So he was just so like, it was just very cheeky and just so interesting choice for him. I couldn't say no. I had to go with it.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I think also what Doc and I are not taking into account here is the personality factor of the kid.
Right.
I mean,
and you grew up with that.
Right. If we'd known this kid and seen how excited they were about this, maybe we would have been like, you know what, that's a cool idea. Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Let me help you make that character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is
I
your
did
son's
have
friend
to.
This is
my
your
son's friend.
It's your son's friend we're talking about. Very different.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very different.
Yeah. It's so funny.
Oh my God, so funny.
I just had to share that little bit because, if you're going to be doing this with your family, you might get someone who says something like that. And so you're going to think about how
you were telling us about the half unicorn, half dragon thing earlier. I once played a character called Binkle Bonk the Ninja Gnome. Okay, that was, and I was like 13 or something. So kids come up with some stuff.
Yeah.
And they come up with great stuff. They come up with great stuff.
Like I said, I'm more of the house of, I'm pretty much going to yes and everything until you're in. And then once you start like really playing, I'm going to start buckling down and like give you a challenge.
Like, this is your first character? Sure.
Yeah.
You'll be dead by next session.
Oh, gosh.
So I have to, with my vampire game and actually with D&D too, I say to the players, if you say anything or do anything that's out of character and you're not doing this, then I'm going to take it as you speaking in character. And if it is out of mood, out of context, and out of genre, I'm going to drop a refrigerator on your head.
Yeah.
And and they get it.
And have you actually done that? Have you actually done that? And what's the response? Okay.
Well, I mean, I have said, a refrigerator drops on your head. Of course, I'm joking, and I never actually in game drop a refrigerator.
Okay. So it's not canon when it happens, but it's enough.
Not canon when it happens, but it's
to get their attention.
Yeah, it's just enough.
All right, Amber, I have readjusted my answer now to the sentient toaster because now, remember, I told you during this whole episode, I said I have never run a one shot or made something fit in a one shot. I hate the term one shot. But god damn, I'm losing my train of thought again.
You were changing your position on sentient toaster.
Okay. So sentient toaster, you can have it. The bad guy's a rust monster. Done.
Oh. Wait,
right? That
okay,
works.
but if you're running this for kids, are you gonna let
Yes, it's a one shot. It's one and done.
All right.
It's one and done. Either the sentient toaster's gonna die or the sentient toaster survives.
Right.
And somebody's got Revivify for the sentient toaster. Yeah. So don't worry about it.
Right.
Oh man. I just think, to this day, that is I feel like that's crazier than the half dragon, half unicorn. That's the sentient toaster is the craziest character request I've had that I let happen.
And thank you for helping my flighty mind get me right back there. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I think that concludes our discussion on running D&D for family and for kids. I hope we gave you guys a ton of ideas on the ways that you can do this. Or maybe we've roped you in and now you're like, one shot with the family. I wasn't thinking about it, but now
I should hire a professional DM to run a one-shot for my family.
Guess who we have on the roster for that? So anyway, folks, let us know in the comments if you have any ideas, have any questions for us, if you have run a one-shot for your family and had different results than anything we've talked about. Let us know in the comments.
Ever see any other show do an episode about running D&D for families? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Well, there is a group online called Dungeons and Daddies.
Oh, okay. I've heard of them.
Right, so they're quite big, actually, quite big.
They don't want to share us.
Oh, really?
Or is it Dungeons and Dads? There's so many of them. There's a Dungeons and Daddies. There's a Dungeons and Dads. There's a Dungeons and Anyway, go ahead. What were you saying, Russell?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are definitely groups around there where people talk
That
about
are family-based.
Family-based D&D. There's definitely groups of them. There's even families that stream D&D. So
interesting.
Yeah, so you can find it. Usually a lot of brothers.
The Swiss Family Gygax, huh?
Right. You get stuck on an island and you have to play D&D with your family for 6 months. What are you going to do?
On that note, I feel like I had come up with a couple of one-shot ideas for folks. If you don't know how to run something for Thanksgiving, I think the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, that happens around Thanksgiving, right? Not Christmas.
Yeah.
So you can take an unlikely band of companions that have to travel the long way home, and they come up against crazy obstacles. The Barbie movie came out, and so I'm sure you probably, if you have any, girls in your house, you might have Barbies or Kens. You could totally set up a Barbie Ken one shot or something. I also thought
a family would love the Scooby Doo. I'm sorry, give everybody Scooby Doo character.
That's true, and it's
they're
perfect
ready to
for
go.
mystery and stuff. And then I thought if there was like a festival, because festivals are a great setting for a one shot, and then it could be like the prize-winning pie got stolen, and they got the prize-winning pumpkin pie. Let's make it Thanksgiving, or apple, whatever you like for Thanksgiving.
Right.
And then who done it? Who stole it? Mystery. There's some ideas, right, for Thanksgiving.
Wait. Land of the Lost and the Sleestack are coming after your party. Just use some lizard men.
Okay. There you go.
Didn't Marty Croft? Nobody? Okay,
no, I never watched it.
Actually, if I was going to run a one shot for kids straight off the bat, like if you told me to do it right now, the game that I would run would be about you're on a ship. No, wait, you're on an island. You've buried the treasure, but you've got no ship. And then a ship turns up, a big black, scary-looking ship, and they send a boat out to you, just a boat on a rope. And so you get on the boat, and somebody pulls the rope, and you get back to the ship, or you get to this new ship, and you get on board, and there's nobody there. And then basically the idea is that time just keeps resetting every sort of 10 minutes, and you can have a timer for this. I've done this. And they have to figure out the plot and how to stop the captain from doing the thing before he does it. But they've got to go through the plot like 10 times to figure out what not to do.
Wow, I love it. You have that written up, Russell?
Somewhere I do, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Not a
I
bad
like
one.
that. Great
Somebody asked me to
ideas.
do.
So now, folks, I mean, we've given you all the tips and tricks, and then now we've even given you a few ideas to kind of seed your adventure.
Your adventure.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're gonna finish that here, I think, and sign off for the night, and we will see you in the next week. I'm thinking I would like, before we go on our little holiday hiatus, to maybe I was gonna say, Doc, we had talked about doing maybe like gifts to give your DM or players. I don't know if
a little holiday special.
A holiday
There might be a
special.
little holiday special might sneak in with the best of.
Right.
You never know. You got to follow us to find out.
Yeah. So
You know what I think we should do? I think the three of us need to play a one shot.
we should. I think that would be a lot
That
of fun.
would be fun one day.
But who's going to
Yeah.
DM?
Well, I changed my statement. We should play 3 one shots.
Okay, there we go.
We should each run a one shot for the other 2.
That would be really interesting. Okay, guys, we're giving away all the goods, 2024 ideas. If you like those ideas, folks, let us know in the comments.
Blew my hat off.
All right, folks. Have a good night, and we will see you next week.
Whoa.